sasabihan ka na nila na canceled yung flight mo. Pero syempre kung nasa ibang bansa ka, paano, who will shoulder the cost of your hotel? Eh dun sa passenger bills, ano yan? Sa air passenger bill of rights, pag cancellation, napaka-minimal nung kailangan gawin ng airline. Ang kailangan lang nila, rebook, refund. Tapos bahala ka na sa buhay mo kung paano ka kakain tsaka saan ka matutulog. So baka isa yan din, so siguro dapat na matingnan kung bakit nangyayari ngayon. Hindi na overbooking nga eh. Parang nagiging modus ngayon, cancellation with no explanation. Kasi nakakita na ako nung text or email, napaka-cold. Nung nakasulat lang, we are canceling your flight. Tapos parang may button ka na ipipress. Tapos wala man lang, we apologize. Wala man lang ganun dun sa pinapadala nila. Send ba to?
Yes, Madam Chair. Yung sinasabi ni Executive Director Arcilia, mabuti yun, yung mga nag-announce yung airline, no? We are overbooked. Sinong mag-volunteer dyan? Bibigyan namin ng ticket or bibigyan namin ng hotel, gano'n-gano'n. Tapos kung walang mag-avail, tataasan pa yung magiging compensation, di ba? Ganito, gano'n. So, yung iba mapilitan na mag-avail. Pero, hindi nyo namomonitor na hindi na ginagawa ng ibang airline yan ngayon. Ginagawa lang yan, direkta na lang na, yung sabi nga, computer-generated cancellation eh. Kung sino, mini mo, pak! Ikaw ngayon, cancel flight mo. Yung kasamahan mo pala, nakasakay na. Sabihan ka lang na cancel yung flight mo, pero nandoon yung aeroplano, lumipad. Overbook lang pala. In that manner, naisahan kayo sa airline. Dapat tingnan niyo yung trabaho niyo dyan, pag-monitor. Dahil bihira na lang ngayon, nag-announce ng ganun ngayon. Puro na lang, gulantang ka na lang pag check-in mo doon, cancel yung flight mo, sir. Dapat mabantayan nyo yan.
Thank you po, sir. At yan po ay hindi na po maaaring, pwede rin pong kaisang overbooking, pero ang rational po kasi pagka canceled ang flight, yung pong flight na yon ay hindi naman ma-forfeit yung fare ng tao kasi ang right po ng isang tao whose flight has been canceled is to refund, rebook, reroute. Yun po ang karapatan ng canceled flight. Kaya hindi po ma-forfeit yung fares of that person whose flight has been canceled. At ang requirement po sa cancellation ng flight ay pagka po ito'y 24 hours or more than 24 hours before at presumably hindi pa naman nasa airport yung mga tao, refund, rebooking, and rerouting.
Pero sa ED, paano kung hindi talaga canceled yung flight?
Yun nga, yung sinabi mo nga na hindi talaga cancel, computer generated ba? Nasabihan ka lang na hindi matuloy yung flight mo. Pero actually, natuloy pala. Pero sabihan ka lang dahil nag-overbook sila. Yung computer generated na pagpili kung sinong kanilang i-offload.
Yan po ay illegal at dapat na we have to go against
Dapat
the
bantayan
airline.
ninyo yan.
Pero ang kaibahan po nito, ito po ay hindi, ang ibig po sabihin, yung fare ng tao ay hindi po mafo-forfeit. Pero masamang gawain po yan at we will bring pressure to bear upon those who are doing that.
Madam Chair?
Opo.
Madam Chair,
Sen Risa muna po and then Sen Rafi.
Salamat, Madam Chair. Well, una, para sa akin, weird po na kung earlier may 10% limit sa overbooking. Pagdating po sa nabuo yung Air Passengers Bill of Rights na dun sana lahat i-institutionalize yung best practices, dun pa nawala. But in any case po, sundan natin yung isang option na sabi nyo, sir, bukas sa passenger na na-deny boarding dahil sa overbooking. May rules po ba na nagre-require na yung refund, yun yung isang option sabi nyo po, yung refund po ba mapoprocess within a certain time under the rules? Kasi narinig ko po sa local airlines natin, 2 buwan bago ma-refund.
Meron pong timeline yan at
Is it a 2-month timeline,
hindi
sir?
po,
Mas maiksi.
mas maiksi po. I'm sorry that I forgot I will check now in a while.
Yes, sir.
Pero
Yung
And siguro,
Opo.
do you have data kung ano ba yun, parang timeline na si ganito si Cebu Pacific, parang aging ng kanilang refund? Meron ho ba kayong ganong data?
meron po kasi may listahan po kami ng lahat ng complaints, tapos yung pong resolution. At ang isa pong napansin namin na pagka ang payment was made via a credit card, nagkakaroon po ng yung procedure po ng bangko, doon po marami nagrereklamo dapat bakit hindi ma-revert kaagad kasi po yung credit card meron silang procedure on reversion.
At saka,
So,
Madam Chair,
po.
kung aabot man ng 2 months or less yung pag-refund ng ibinayad ng pasaherong na deny boarding, pati po ba yung international travel tax marirefund sa kanila?
Refund po yun.
Dapat, sir.
Refund.
Okay, good to hear that from you. Kasi, Madam Chair, karanasan ng ibang mga pasaherong na deny boarding, yung international travel tax, di na po nila nakita.
Siguro, Sen. Risa, mamaya tatawagin natin. We also invited Tieza
Thank
to
you, Madam
answer
Chair.
that query. Yes, Senator Raffy.
Kasi kanina dun sa question ni Senator Bato, tungkol dun sa kinakancel yung flight, ini-email yung passenger, and then hindi naman pala cancel yung flight. At sabi niya ni Mr. Arcilla, illegal yon. So kung illegal yon, meron na hubang na-sanction kayo, na parusahan, na multahan na airlines doing this? Nasabi niyo po illegal.
Wala pa po kasi
Bakit po wala pa po? Rampant to.
kasi po ang aming pong tinatanggap na report at ang aming monitoring doon ay yun ay canceled flight.
Kaya nga po sabi niyo kanina, illegal yon. Kasi rampant na nga to, marami ng complaints. Kanina, marami tayong narinig ng mga resource persons na nag-complain. Ako po mismo, meron akong complainant. And not only this, may nakita tayo sa mga videos kanina, di ba, na nagsasabing sila ay naloko ng isang airline and it's illegal for you. Ang tanong ko, ulitin ko, for the second time, meron na ho ba kayo na sanction dahil sa illegal activities na ito?
Ito pong
Na kayo po mismo lang sabi. Kung wala, then inutil po kayo.
wala pa po sa ngayon.
O, so
Pero,
inutil kayo kasi wala pang nasa-sanction, wala pang napaparusahan. Matagal na practice to.
kasi po
Kasi?
nagkaroon po ng heightened incidence nito magkaroon ng supply chain disruption na amin pong pinipilit na gawa ng paraan ngayon.
Regardless, sir, kasi pag may violations, dapat may sanction, katapat na sanction yan. Kasi lalo pa rampant po na itong violations na ito, paulit-ulit na lamang. Dapat meron po masasampulan para itong mga airlines magsabi, hey, mukhang nakukul ng attention natin, napaparusahan na tayo, namumultahan na tayo, dapat maghina-hina na tayo. Pero nilalargahan nyo lang, pinapabayaan nyo lang, tuloy-tuloy lang nangyayari itong masamang gawain na ayon sa inyo illegal. And yet, wala kayong ginagawa.
With due respect po, tingnan po din natin yung background at senaryo ng mga pangyayari na magkaroon po ng restart ng aviation nitong 2020.
Pero meron pa ako kayong ginawang investigation. Sige, titingnan. Sabi mo, iimbestiga mo yung senaryo. Iimbestiga nyo pa ngayon pa lamang. Pero in the past, have you done any investigation
Have you ever
on one
called,
incident?
diba, have you ever called Cebu Pacific, Philippine Airlines, or
Yes.
Air Asia to address bakit ganito kadami yung mga reklamo na natatanggap?
Opo.
And then
Ah.
mag-sanction kayo,
Opo.
multa
Opo.
kayo kung kailangang magmulta sa aeroplano. Kaso sabi nyo, wala pa kayong ginagawang ganun.
Opo, nagkaroon na po kami ng mga meeting itong towards the end of May.
So puro meeting na lamang, sir.
Kasi po ito ay preliminary mga inquiries pa lamang dahil...
Pero sir, matagal na nangyari ito. So puro meeting na lang, puro preliminary meetings na lang.
Sir, ito pong mga pangyayaring ito na triggered nitong supply chain disruption ay novel incident po ito, sir.
Sir, this has been happening for a long time, even before pandemic.
Siguro, padagdag lang Sen. Rafi, kung may ganong problema yung mga airline na hindi, dahil may problema sila dun sa parts and whatever, hindi ba ho dapat wag silang mag-offer ng flight? Kasi hindi naman pala nila kayang i-provide yung ganong service. Pero parang tuloy-tuloy pa din na apparently hindi pala kaya din nilang, tuloy-tuloy silang nagbebenta, tuloy-tuloy silang kumikita, pero hindi naman pala nila kayang i-provide yung ganong service.
Yes, ma'am, yan po yung goal namin itong mga nakaraang meeting. At kahapon po may meeting din. At ang goal po ay to reduce the flights in an orderly fashion. Hindi po naman kasi pwedeng biglang itigil lahat ng mga flight na ito dahil baka po magkaroon ng collapse ang ating services. dahil critical po ang connectivity. So,
But,
pinagsubmit,
but sir, technically, there's already a collapse, and it's our riding public yung nag-a-absorb ng ganong burden na isipin mo, ready ka na lumipad, tapos sasabihin sa'yo 2 days before na hindi ka pala pwedeng lumipad. Ang punot dulo pala nun, to begin with, hindi pala talaga nila kaya. Di sana naging honest na lang sila na ito lang ang kaya namin i-provide at the moment kasi meron tayong supply chain problem. Hindi yung paaasahin niyo yung pasahero na makakapunta kami sa beach, di ba? Makakaboracay kami tapos hindi naman pala to begin with.
Madam
Ma'am,
Chair, Madam
Yes.
Chair,
Yes, Senator Grace.
malinaw na kung hindi ka nagtawag ng pagdinig na ito, ang Civil Aeronautics Board parang hindi yata siniseryoso yung mandato nila. Kasi doon pa lang tama yung sinabi ni Senator Raffy eh. Ano to, puro meeting na lang matagal naman din tong nangyayari. Syempre, kung yung mga airline nagiging kung nakakalusot, kung may nagpapalusot, 'di ba? Itong Civil Aeronautics Board yun nga yung allowable or yung threshold ng overbooking is 5%. Parang hindi ko alam kung yung resource person natin alam yan. Dahil kanina tinatanong ninyo, parang hindi niya sinasabi na may threshold. Pero meron talagang threshold na 5%. So ano yan? Based on his monitoring, wala silang nakikita. Ano bang monitoring ang ginagawa nila? So iniintay lang nila yung report ng airline. Parang mali yata yun. So sa tingin ko, dun sa public services, pwede natin ipatawag dito yung Civil Aeronautics Board. Ano bang qualification nila? Parang di naman yata nila siniseryoso yung trabaho nila. Parang cushy position lang ba yan? So yun lamang, Madam Chair, sa ngayon.
Thank you, Sen. Siguro maganda mo lang, may power ba kayo to sanction the airlines and what kind of penalties can you impose?
meron po kaming monetary sanctions sa po mga nakakaraang taon. Nakapag-impose po kami ng 52 million penalty against Cebu Pacific. At sa PAL, sa Air Philippines, sa Philippines Air Asia, several millions po ang naging penalty namin. At kahapon nga po kasi ito pong pagbabawas ng flight hindi naman po napakadaling paraan dahil pinag-aralan po kahapon ilan po ang inyong eroplano, ilan ang lines of flying ng bawat eroplano, ilan ang spare, ano yung ruta na dapat ninyong i-collapse. Ito po pinag-uusapan na kasi yun po namang kasong ito is an open and shut case. Ang ibig po sabihin, ang issues are clear enough and then ang ibig sabihin, we can move on to the second phase na how do we now deal with reducing the flight. In process na po ito. At ito pong pangyayari ito ay, kasi matatandaan po ninyo, January, February, March, nung mag-restart ang aviation, medyo shaky, pero ang OTP po gumanda hanggang mga February. Nag-dip po yan ng May at saka June dahil po sa supply chain issues. Kaya naman po talagang
Pero
maaga po.
yung sa akin in fact, yung isang resource person natin parang January, yung sa akin March on. So this was way before May, June, may ganito ng pangyayari. But ang dating I have to be honest, ang dating kung hindi kami nagpatawag ng hearing sa Senado, parang hindi kayo magko-conduct ng meeting. Dahil parang all of a sudden, naririnig namin ngayon na the past few days, nagmi-meeting na kayo. But this has been going on since January pa.
Bago pa po namin natanggap ang notice, nagmi-meeting na po ang air sector. Ang air sector po, ang MIA, ang CAAP, ang CAB, DOTR, with the airlines na bawasan po niyo yung flight. Nagawa na po namin yan itong Enero kasi nito pong nagkaroon ng dip in OTP. Meron po tayong isang airline na sinanction natin na binawasan ng mga slots. 19% po ng slots ang binawas sa kanila para maging stable so that they can have a more efficient, reliable, and stable services. At it became effective po. Gumanda po ang OTP nila. Bigla pong dumapo itong supply chain problem. Wala pa po yung notice of hearing of the Congress. We were already meeting and looking at reducing the flights of the airlines po.
Sen ba to?
Anong airlines yun, sir? Na tanggalan nyo ng 15 flights? Anong airline yun?
Philippines Air Asia po nung bandang January, kasi nung pong mag-restart ang aviation, ang kanila pong performance, yung cancellations at delays ay over the top po or off the charts. Nagkaroon po ng series of investigations and meetings at the decision po of the air team was to take away slots, 17%, about 20 slots po natanggal sa kanila, with the end in view of stabilizing the services. At yan din po ang prosesong ginagawa namin ngayon. Bago po namin natanggap ang notice of hearing, we're already sitting down and coming up with this. Nagsubmit na po ang mga airlines ng programa nila na ito yung aming mga ruta na babawasan at ito po ay magaganap na po ito. Magaganap na po ito.
Yes.
Chair,
Senator
siguro before we move, no, siguro sa CAB na lang, yung pong, do we utilize the Clark National Airport? Dati po kasi, alam naman natin na ang NAIA is really, over capacity, go over its capacity, kaya nga nakakadagdag ito sa, sa ordeal, no, ng mga pasahero. But are we using Clark International Airport already? Dati kasi, hiniwalay na, di ba? Yung mga taga North, convenient naman pumunta dun eh.
We
Kaya
have
nung pandemic, I think nung pandemic, Madam Chair,
we have
nagbalikan doon. Pero ang gusto ko malaman, binalik naman natin sa Clark.
we have quite an intense program to drive many of our airlines to Clark. In fact, I was there together with Secretary Frasco about 2 weeks ago. We have a program of promoting the. In fact, we were quite successful po because our local airlines, PAL, AirAsia, Cebu Pacific launched 13 new services out of Clark. 8 of them were domestic and 5 were international. So we are doing this po. We will do this in Davao. We will do this in Cebu. At ang Cebu po, ang recovery po compared to 2019 figures nila, they're almost approaching the pre-COVID levels. Ang Clark po was lagging or is lagging siguro mga 30% of pre-COVID levels. So we are pushing and the airlines naman are responding. 13 new flights were launched.
Well, that's very good to hear because Clark International Airport is a very nice.
Very nice airport po, sir.
That's a 12 billion peso facility
Ang
na
laki-laki
hindi
po.
natin na-utilize.
It's
And I
even-
think most of the Northern Manila, Metro Manila, mas madaling pumunta kaysa pumunta ka sa NAIA ngayon eh. Napakadali na, no? Especially with the North-South commuter line, hopefully, in a few years' time, will be pero I think we should already utilize itong
Sino nga ba
Clark
operator
International
ng
Airport.
Clark International Airport?
Ito po ay isang private consortium na ang pangalan po ay LIPAD. Ang acronym
Sino
po ay
bahagi
LIPAD.
sa lipad?
Po.
Sino, kasi di ba sa Cebu, it's a mega wide and that GRM.
GMR.
GR. Sa
GMR.
Clark po ba sino yung nagpapatakbo?
Yung pong LIPAD is a consortium of companies,
Of
local
who?
companies.
Of who?
One of them is, I think, Philinvest, JG Summit,
So JG Summit, which is the same company as Cebu
Opo.
Pacific.
the technical partner is Changi Airport po,
Of Singapore.
Singapore po.
Senator Risa.
Ay, sige, sige. Well,
Senator JB, tanong ka na.
Madam Chair, siguro, if we can already move, no, those in the hot seat, no, probably you can ask Cebu Pacific, Philippine Airlines. O sige, Viana. Before that,
Senator Risa, ano na lang siguro last point with
Salamat,
CAB.
Madam Chair, at salamat sa NJB. Kasi bago nating umalis sa CAB, mga 3 beses nyo na pong binanggit yung supply chain problems. Kaya gusto ko lang i-follow up yon. May talk nga recently na yung US-based jet engine manufacturer Pratt and Whitney ay to blame daw sa canceled flights resulting sa lack of spare parts. And yung article na nabasa ko po, nag-claim na ang Cebu Pac in-anticipate daw yung problemang iyon by doubling the number of spare engines na hawak nila in reserve. mula sa prescribed international standard of 10% to 20% kung sakali daw. Pero itong so-called margin of safety ay nabura. Kasi nabunyag na yung bagong Pratt and Whitney jet engines, at least dun sa Airbus A320 aircraft, Neo aircraft, would actually need to be brought in for servicing after just 6,000 flight cycles. Di tulad ng 20,000 flight cycles ng mga mas lumang modelo. So, Cab, narinig po namin itong claims na maintenance issues, nanggaling daw sa kakulangan ng spare parts, at narinig po namin na force majeure po yan. Yan din po ba ang opinion ng force majeure? Kasi yung maintenance cycle po ba ng aircraft o kaya yung supply ng spare parts, talaga bang bagay po yan na unforeseeable, unavoidable, beyond the control of human beings? Na yun naman yung definition ng force majeure.
Madam Senator, ang pananaw ko po na personal, it doesn't put the airlines off the hook necessarily, ano po. Kasi ang tingin ko po dito, even assuming na talagang ang global supply chain issue has disrupted the supply, no? That walang delivery ng aircraft, walang spare parts, pati yung repair matagal dahil maghihintay ka na matagal. Pero number one po, we have to, I think, establish the causal relationship between what is happening in the global supply chain and what is happening on the ground in the performance of the airline. Dahil baka naman ang isang airline ay talagang hindi siya nagpe-perform na mabuti at hindi niya ginawa yung dapat niyang gawin. Number two po, it's not an automatic excuse po kasi an airline is under obligation under the law to perform all and exhaust everything in order to prevent, minimize, if not prevent, the harm, the suffering, the inconvenience of the people. So it's not a given po.
Salamat, ED Arcilla, at salamat, Madam Chair. So kung to a reasonable degree, pwede namang i-foresee itong mga maintenance stresses dahil sa supply chain problems globally. It goes back to the question of the chair earlier. So yung ganong mga flights affected, pwedeng i-foresee, dapat hindi ino-overbook. So I'll just pursue that later, Madam Chair, also with the two airlines present today.
Ms.
Salamat,
Enrisa,
Madam.
Senator.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Sir, your honest opinion, siniseryoso ba ng mga airlines itong air passenger Bill of Rights? Siniseryoso ba nila ito?
Sa paniwala ko po ay siniseryoso po nila.
Kasi there is a commuter group named the Passenger Forum stated that while the existing air passenger bill of rights was a welcome development back in 2012, it might be best to have a legislated version that will set penalties for airlines responsible for rights violations. What is your position on this statement? Do you agree with the TPF on creating a law that will institutionalize the air passengers Bill of Rights?
Thank you, sir. Unfortunately po, we have been supporting, there have been a plethora of bills every year to institutionalize the Bill of Rights and to strengthen them kasi very deficient po ng mandate ng CAB as an administrative agency. Unfortunately po, ito ay maaaring hindi nagiging very priority without disrespect. Hindi po ito pumapasa. Ang dami na po naming comments na pinasa supporting the bills. Pero marami na pong taon.
Mabuti naman at supporting pala kayo dito. And we are contemplating on pushing for this kind of measure. Hindi naman ito to discourage our airline industry, no? Baka mamaya sabihin naman ng mga Cebu Pacific ng PAL na that measure, that law will be so restrictive on their part. Masyado silang sinasakal at baka it will lead to the demise of the air transportation industry. Hindi po ito. Ang ating po ditong pinuprotektahan is public interest. Yung ating flying public na sana matagal na reklamo ito ng taong bayan eh. Kaya dapat siguro maaksyonan natin ito. Sana hindi negative ang dating dito sa mga airline companies. Hopefully. Anyway, you will be consulted later if this bill will prosper. Titingnan natin. Salamat, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair?
I'd like to, yes,
Madam Chair?
Senator Raffy.
Last na lamang, since wala dito yung CAAP, siguro pwede ko itong tanungin sa CAB. Doon po sa maintenance, sa general aviation, yung mga aeroplano nagpaparenta, na-monitor niyo po ba ito? Kasi kanina binanggit ko, since 2018 to 2022, 38 airplane crashes na attributed dito mostly kapabayaan po ng mga otoridad, particular na po ng CAAP, kasama na po yung CAAP dito. Kasi hindi po monitor yung pong maintenance. Kasi ang minomonitor lamang po ng CAAP, siguro kasama kayo doon, yung sa yearly, annual. Pero doon sa regular flying hours, wala na pong monitor ang ginagawa ang CAAP. Kung ano lang pong dideklara ng airline sa general aviation, yun na lamang po ang tinatanggap ninyo. So wala talaga kayong monitoring. This is the reason kung bakit nagkakaroon ng maraming airplane crashes dito po sa general aviation. Kulang po sa monitoring. Marami po ako mga ebidensya ipapakita sa inyo later, siguro pag nandito na yung CAAP, na pabaya po ang CAAP, kasama na po kayo dyan, CAB. Yun naman po. Salamat, Madam Chair.
Ipagpaumanhin po ninyo, sir, I'm not in a position to respond to safety and the technical issues dahil ang aming pong tanggapan is ang mandate is economic lamang. Wala po kaming mga piloto, wala po kaming mga technical people in our office. At pararatingin ko po sa CAAP ang...
Pero when it comes to economic side, di ba, CAB, meron sa general aviation yung mga aeroplano nagpaparenta eh. Pinaparentahan nila yung kanilang mga aircraft. So dapat, yun ang monitor nyo. Dapat under sa jurisdiction nyo rin yun. Because they're renting their aircraft.
Yun po lamang kanilang financials ang dumadaan sa amin, sinecheck namin yung viability ng kanilang kumpanya.
Okay.
Pero yung pong AOC na tinatawag, Air Operator Certificate, yan po yung operational fitness nila
That is under CAAP.
under CAAP.
Siguro, Madam Chair, next hearing, kung meron pa,
Yes, we
invite
will-
natin yung CAAP.
We will invite them.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Now, siguro, let us proceed na kay Cebu Pacific.
Yes, Madam Chair. Siguro, those nasa hot seat ngayon ng Cebu Pac and the other airlines. Pero Madam Chair, because I've been observant, no, we've been traveling since 1990 sa mga organization na we're national officials. Dati po, wala namang problema. No? Parang lately lang, parang lumala yung problema because I have observed ng mga bago yung mga planes ng Cebu Pac noon. Sabi ko nga noon, parang sabi ko Chinese style talaga ang Cebu Pac. Dala-dalawa pa yung hagdanan kasi within 30 minutes kailangan nakapag-turn around na, no? Naka-disembark at saka nakapasakay na yung passengers. Pero that time, tuloy-tuloy and very efficient, no? Pero lately, bakit nagkaroon ng ganito? What's really the problem? Is it really overbooking? Is it the promotional ticket fare? O yung sinabi kanina ni Senator Risa na banggit, yung supply issue about the Pratt and Whitney problem. So I probably would like to hear the committee from you. Ano ba talaga nagiging problema? Kasi nga, as I mentioned before, Madam Chair, natutuwa ako, sabi ko, si Pal noon, isa lang yung tube o kaya hagdanan. Si Subo pa kailangan within 30 minutes. Diba? Dati ganun kayo para mabilis.
Anong year yon?
Siguro early 2000, I think when bago yung mga
23 years ago.
Yeah, probably.
Siguro, can we hear from Cebu Pacific? Yes, Mr. Laong.
Good afternoon po, Madam Chairperson of the Committee on Tourism, Senator Nancy Binay, Chairperson of the Committee on Public Services, Senator Grace Poe, our honorable senators and distinguished members of the Committee on Tourism and the Committee on Public Services. On behalf of Cebu Pacific, I would like to thank all of you for the opportunity to address the issues raised in Senate Resolution number 575. We express our sincerest apologies to our passengers for the disruptions and assure you that we are committed to resolving these challenges. We value the trust and confidence of our passengers and are committed to providing safe, affordable, and reliable flights. Naintindihan namin na responsibilidad pa rin namin ito bilang serbisyo publiko. We agree with the committee's goals on providing solutions and servicing our customers properly, as we have heard earlier. To enhance our operations and assist affected customers, we have implemented measures such as activating a disruption management team, increasing live chat agents, and improving policies and processes for disruption handling and communication. We acknowledge that these actions may still be insufficient for affected passengers, and we are actively managing the situation and assessing how we can provide better care during this recovery period. We see today's hearing as also as the proper forum to provide this august body and the general public a broad view of the challenges that the global aviation industry is facing at this junction, and which directly impact the operations of Cebu Pacific as well as other carriers worldwide. It must also be said that coming into 2023, Cebu Pacific was very optimistic about the ability to fully restore services to its customers in order to support our country's post-pandemic recovery. In January 2023, after finalizing the investments in new planes as well as operational upgrades, we embarked on a recovery program starting with the arrival of the new Airbus NEOs. In fact, first quarter showed a credible performance or credible on-time performance as OTP had improved month on month. However, as early as March, we began to feel the industry challenges and its effects from April onwards. This is when the engine and supply chain issues in the global aviation industry changed the dynamics altogether. Specifically, the global aviation industry has been impacted by Pratt & Whitney engine issues, which power the Airbus A321 and A320neo. The Pratt & Whitney engines are experiencing premature removal from service, and each engine restoration requires 220 days instead of the industry norm of 90 days. This premature servicing can be likened to a car's preventive maintenance, where the vehicle is brought in for inspection at 3,000 kilometers instead of the expected 5,000 kilometers. Additionally, the vehicle is not in the shop for 1 day, but for 1 month. More than 120 aircraft throughout the world are grounded because of this issue. Cebu Pacific this year already encountered 12 unscheduled engine removals, and we had to ground 3 Airbus A321 and A320neos indefinitely since the middle of March. In fact, an Indian airline called Go First went bankrupt last May 2023, blaming Pratt & Whitney for failing to provide the necessary engines, leading to a substantial portion of their fleet being grounded. Apart from the Pratt & Whitney engine issues, we have also encountered delays from Airbus, our aircraft manufacturer. We recognize that global supply chain issues are further worsening the situation and causing additional delays in aircraft deliveries. As a result, we have experienced delays ranging from anywhere between 2 to 5 months, whereas pre-COVID, these aircraft would normally arrive on time and ahead of schedule. These delivery delays necessitate changes to our flight schedules, including flight cancellations and equipment changes from larger to smaller aircraft, which may cause some passengers to be disrupted and cause the perception of overbooking. Rather than canceling the flight, the use of smaller aircraft allow us to still bring as many customers as possible to their destination and lessen the number of disrupted passengers. Last but not least, supply chain issues have become increasingly prominent, leading to extended recovery periods for aircraft on ground, or ang tinatawag namin sa industriya, AOG. These AOGs refer to aircraft that are grounded, requiring additional time for restoration. These aircraft must remain grounded until they are deemed airworthy and compliant with safety standards. All of these events impact the number of aircraft available to fly our planned schedule. So global infrastructure challenges have heightened the probability of aircraft damage, resulting in longer AOG periods and logistical difficulties in recovering aircraft. At the same time, SEB unfortunately experienced a number of incidents rapidly and in such a short span of time, such as the ground damage from runway debris when we were taking off from an airport, damage caused by unexpected severe weather events, where air stairs had, all of a sudden, there was a sudden gust of winds. Air stairs had flown into two of our aircraft, one of which was cleared to fly that same evening, but the other one sustained extensive damage, which would require 3 months' worth of repair. Bird strikes, where both engines were hit as well as the main landing gear. Aircraft damaged by a burst tire upon landing. And lastly, damage from a towing incident by our contracted maintenance provider. So all of these incidents require complex repairs and take longer to recover, especially with the current supply chain constraints. These sudden and unprecedented operational challenges and fleet availability issues led to the sudden and sharp grounding of up to 17% of our fleet since April. So this is a very rapid and sharp decline in our fleet. Normally in the past, we would normally have 2 to 3 or 3 standby aircraft, and that would normally cover all of the operational difficulties or challenges that we may have. But in this case, napakabilis, napakabigla. Further, some red lighting alerts have also become more prevalent and are longer in duration this year. I think we've had around 78 red lightning alerts from April to June, which affected around 535 flights. Some red lightning alerts do take up to 2.5 to 3 hours, which require, for safety purposes, the full stoppage of operations and could affect flights that are flying to airports that can only operate before sunset and could eventually lead to cancellations. These are the realities that frame Cebu Pacific's current operations, and we are taking all possible steps to address the issues that are global in impact, such as, number one, we have already reduced our flight schedules until the third quarter. Number two, acquiring additional aircraft for greater resilience. We are increasing our spare coverage from 3 to 4 starting this June and up to 6 by the end of the year. And we will also enhance our customer care and recovery policy in order to make sure we are able to communicate to guests the right information and to give them the right options. We are always guided by the Air Passenger Bill of Rights and have adhered to the prescribed policies and rules, especially on matters that affect our customers and our passengers. We remain committed to our mission of providing safe, reliable, and affordable air transportation and look forward to constructive discussions and feedback from this honorable committee. Thank you once again for the opportunity to speak here today.
Yes, Senator JV.
So, just to clarify, because for our riding passengers, no, sa mga commuters, siyempre nasa isip nila, ano yun eh, responsibilidad ng airlines, no? So you are saying that the main reason for all of these things that are happening, yung cancellation, flight cancellations, is that yung supply chain, no? Na yung aircraft nyo, a lot of aircraft are grounded as of this time. Kaya nagkakaroon ng downgrade minsan, siyempre, halimbawa from 230 passengers, yung A321, A320 is about 180. So may mga 50 kayo doon na yun yung ma-offload or maka-cancel ang flight nila. Di ba? So is that what you're saying, Sir Lau?
Through the chair, that is correct. That is one of the reasons. There are actually a multitude of, what's happened, no? Just to provide some perspective. Pero yun nga po, one of the issues is kapag may delay po sa delivery ng aeroplano, kunwari, yung A321 po, hindi na-deliver on time, no? We have to substitute it with a smaller aircraft. Now, normally, this is done ahead of time para po makapagbigay kami ng oportunidad sa pasahero para makapag-rebook, para makapagpagawa ng alternative travel plans, para makapag-refund or travel fund po without penalty.
But of course, for the riding public, sabihin nila, dapat na-anticipate niyan. Dapat you should have ready equipment, ready spare engines, ganong that you are saying now that there is problem with the engine supplier, that is Pratt and Whitney, because of the backlog, no? Did you do that sa Cebu Pac? Did you anticipate because of this problem? Kasi alam nyo naman yung problema na yung dapat na nabanggit ni Senrisa, yung dating 20,000 cycles ng engine, ngayon naging 6,000. Minsan nagiging lesser pa. So may problema tayo sa mga newer engines. But what remedies are you doing to address this problem as of now? No? Kasi ano ba yan? I think matagal pang development yan pag-aayos eh.
Siguro, Sen. JV, just to add, for you to kumbaga downgrade kayo dun sa available flights na pwede nyong i-offer, do you need a permit from CAB to do that or can you do it on your own?
I think we submit po yung schedule changes to the Civil Aeronautics Board, no? Whether mag-change ng schedules, no? Nagpapadala naman po kami. Minsan po kasi on the day of operation siya nangyayari.
Hindi, for example, kasi di ba parang sinasabi niya nga, parang in a way, you knew na we will be having problems. In fact, you said na up to the third quarter. So, on your own, can you downgrade yung available flights?
We already have taken that action, Senator.
Since when?
Mainly because
Since when?
Since we've started as early as May. Yes, as early as May.
So sa May lang kayo nagbawas ng flight. On your own, you don't need CAB to do that
No, because
to tell you na mag-downgrade kayo or magbawas kayo ng binibenta yung flights.
Through the chair, when we had spotted the long-term grounding po because of the jets, because of the Pratt and Whitney issue, we had already started to create and reduce our schedules, no, up to the third quarter. Now, the reason for doing that is ideally we are doing this ahead of time because we understand that it is more difficult for a customer or a passenger to make last-minute changes to his travel plans. So if any cancellations were to happen, ideally we do them substantially ahead of time.
So parang with
Madam-
with your statement now, I assume na a few months, kunwari, the remaining quarter, dapat wala na tayong maririnig ng mga pasahero na makakatanggap sila ng email from SEBPAC saying na canceled yung flight nila 2 days before or 4 days before a flight?
So
Or mababawasan?
So we've increased our resiliency. We've increased our resiliency by adding more spare aircraft. We've reduced our schedules. Now, so we are hopeful na minimize yung schedule changes. Now, having said that,
Parang lumalabas, hindi pa rin, nagbebenta pa rin kayo more than what you can
hindi po,
sell.
nagbawas na po.
So nagbawas na kayo.
Yes.
Wait,
Madam
si Sen.
Chair,
Grace muna. Yes.
just a quick question. Please enlighten us what 6,000 cycles mean as opposed to 20,000. Ano ba yan? Flights, airtime? Kasi parang 6,000 flights ba yan? Or how is that determined for the
Madam Chair.
maintenance? Yes.
Through the chair.
Clarificatory lang. Yes.
May I answer? I'm sorry.
Please proceed.
Through the chair, a cycle means one landing. So every cycle is one landing and then another cycle is takeoff. So pag lumipad siya, one cycle. Pag lumanding siya, one more cycle. Ngayon, two cycles po. Isang lipad, isang landing.
So it
Now,
doesn't matter what the distance is.
Hindi po. It depends on the type of part, but normally for the engines, they can be cycle limited. There are parts in the engine that are also time limited. But in this particular case, the main restriction is the number of cycles. Now, normally
So
po,
that means per plane, for one cycle, that's about 3,000 flights, no?
that's correct. That's correct.
So in one aircraft, how many flights do you have in 1 year? With one aircraft?
Per aircraft po, we normally have around 4 round trips per day. So around
So
8 per aircraft po.
So 4 round trips. So that's 4 per day times 365. So 1,460 flights for one aircraft. Wow. Okay. Kaya talaga bumabalik tayo sa safety issue, ano? Yun talaga yung importante dito. And bakit naman natin pinipili yung Pratt at Whitney na yun? Wala na bang iba talagang supplier?
Through the chair, no, the certification of an engine is a long process, mainly because the primary concern of the industry is safety. So Pratt and Whitney is a US company. Their engines are certified by both the Federal Aviation Administration of the United States as well as EASA of Europe. Tinitingnan po, and this is the normal process for any new engine. Dati naman po, yung mga matatandang engine, ganun din nagsisimula. 3,000 cycles, 4,000 cycles, paakyat ng paakyat habang dumadami yung experience with that engine. Ang isa kong naging, I guess, challenge because of COVID, nung nagkaroon ng COVID, starting ng March, lahat po ng eroplano sa buong mundo pinarada. So nakaparada siya ng matagal. Nung pinarada siya ng matagal, the lack of data that engine manufacturers could take in, no, was one of the contributors, no, to this. But having said that, this is a very safe engine. We continuously monitor as a NEO operator, and we believe that other airlines are also NEO operators. We continuously monitor the data. And then kung may makita kaming issue or something na out of standard, no, binababa po namin yung makina para i-check.
Okay.
Dapat lang po. Yes, sir.
Well,
Check.
at least we are assured that safety
Yes.
is your priority. Of course, the inconvenience is really something that we contend with regularly now, but safety is always paramount. Now, just for the information also of the committee, I was wondering about Executive Director Arcilia. He's been there, if I'm as a cab director since 2014. So I think meron na siyang institutional knowledge at mga nangyayari. So hopefully, CAB Director Arcilia, with your many years of experience at CAB, you should be able to already monitor this issue more effectively. That's all for now again, Madam Chair. Thank you for the time.
Thank you,
Madam Chair, interjection with the kind indulgence of Sen JV.
Sen Risa.
Okay, salamat po Madam Chair, salamat Sen JV. Doon po sa line of Chief Lau, doon po sa line of questioning ni Sen JV, doon sa supply chain problems, I really hope our airlines, and I'll ask this also of PAL later, Madam Chair, I really hope our airlines didn't overbook flights sa gitna po nitong global supply chain problems na sinasite. Did Cebu Pac or did Cebu Pac not overbook flights?
Through the chair, if I may answer, no. I think si ED Arcilia had mentioned it earlier. The issue is not necessarily overbooking, but it is really on denied boarding. There are, by the way, several reasons why we can deny board a passenger. If, for example, nag-bomb threat siya, i-offload namin yun. In case meron pong, so some of our airports are very challenging. They're very short runways. In case, kunwari, malakas yung hangin, masama yung panahon, and mailoload lang na tao is X number of people, no less, kailangan po namin mag-offload. Otherwise, pag nagsakay po kami ng masyado marami, no, or over and above the safety limit, baka po may mangyari. The other practice that is being discussed is overbooking as a commercial practice. So yun
That's what
po.
I'm asking about, Chief
Yes.
Lau.
So
Kasi
normal,
of course, wala naman sa mga nagreklamong pasahero natin ay nag-bomb threat. Talagang
opo,
no fault sila dito. Opo.
absolutely, wala pong kasalanan yung pasahero. When an airline does overbook and does deny board, then kasalanan po namin yon. We will have to compensate that passenger, whether through tickets, hotel, whatever. Kung in-overbook namin siya at dinenay board namin siya, kasalanan namin yan. Now, there are occasions na we have to change the equipment type. In the case po ng isa kong narinig naming kanina, no, actually, in particular, sa Chief of Staff ng Chairperson of the committee, we had to downgrade the aircraft on kicks on Osaka from a 330 to a 320. Now, what's the reason for that? One is na-delay po yung delivery. Binanggit po sa amin ng Airbus na actually, September makukuha niyo yan. Tapos sinabi nila, December makukuha niyo. Tapos sinabi nila ulit, April makukuha ninyo. So having said that, that's not an excuse. We are responsible for our passengers. One of the issues that we found out is nag-blast po kami ng communication to that group of affected passengers. Nakita po namin karamihan po ng mga pasahero either nag-rebook, nag-refund, tinanggap po yung option. So hindi with the indulgence of the chair, I really need to look at that specific case and I hope we can get in touch with you. But I do not know why bakit isang tao yung hindi na communicatan. But
Hindi kaya may problema din yung system na ginagamit nyo for booking?
we'll have to check into the specific case, Madam Chair. I really need to see kung ano pa yung PNR, kung ano pa yung nangyari.
And yun nga, katulad nga yung tanong, paano niya pinipili kung sino yung tatanggalin nyo?
It's
Doon
a-
sa, ano ba yan, system generated na parang, pag bingo, itong pangalan na to tatanggalin natin. Ganun ba yung sistema?
That's a
Yung
good-
tanong ko kanina, Madam Chair, na computer-generated draw lots that was actually communicated to one passenger. So, ganung method po ba?
Madam Chair, I think first of all, we have to work on our communications with our passengers. If we do not apologize for the inconvenience that we cause, then that is something we will improve on. In terms of, let's say po, nagkaroon ng flight cancellation, so 180 pax, kunwari lang, wag muna natin pag-usapan yung downgrade. Let's say na-cancel yung Manila Cebu. Ang gagawin po namin is, first option actually is, magkakaroon ba ng oportunidad na makapag-mount ng extra flight the next day or the same day? Because of the fleet situation we've had, it's been very difficult for us to actually mount extra flights. Now, having said that, what we normally do is we book the passengers on the first available flight. Having said that again, ang priority po namin in terms of reaccommodating passengers are the vulnerable passengers muna. Whether they're senior citizens, persons with disabilities, families with children, unaccompanied.
That is systems generated.
That is a rule we have put in.
So nakikita dun sa program nyo, dun lumalabas na ito yung
Opo,
kumbaga priority list.
yes po. Now, ang susunod, outside ng vulnerable groups, nagiging random na po. Mainly because ayaw rin kami maakusahan na, o bakit yung piso inuna nyo? Bakit yung nagbayad ng 10,000 inuna nyo? So after the first set of vulnerable groups, we then reaccommodate everyone else to the next available flight.
So just as a last follow-up with the indulgence of Sen. JV and the Chair, nabanggit nyo kasi yung 10,000. So hindi ito for highest bidder tulad ng experience ni resource person number 3 na biglang dahil nagbili ang tita niya ng 14,000 peso ticket, biglang makakalipad siya the next morning. Oo, despite being told fully booked na lahat ng flights.
Senator, through the chair, I'm sorry. Senator Risa, what happened, no, unfortunately to that passenger was May 1, nagkaroon po ng power outage sa Terminal 3. As a result of that, we had to cancel 48 flights that day. We are cooperating, parang I was in the airport that day. I stood side by side with sila Mia and sila DOTR because talagang ang natamaan amongst all of the Philippine carriers is really Cebu Pacific because kami lang po ang nag-ooperate sa Terminal 3.
Pero bakit
So-
kayo rin naman na nag-ooperate ng Clark? How come that option to transfer the flights to Clark, hire kayo ng bus, transport the passengers, di ba? I guess kailangan medyo madiskarte din tayo.
Yes po. So if I can just go back to the red lightning alert and to that customer, we really truly value our customers, no? Is our system will automatically rebook you to the next available flight. Now, what may happen in this case, na-rebook siya, ang original flight niya yata was May 1st, no? Tapos, ang narinig ko yata yung next available, or na-rebook siya to May 5, no? Maki was scheduled to take the board exam yata ng May 3, yun yung narinig ko po. So, ang gusto sana is, kung makakalipad ba siya from Dumaguete back to Manila, before the 3rd, no? So ang normally gagawin ng system is i-rebook ka to the next available flight. Bakit? Para siguradong may upuan ka. Regardless kung regardless po
Hindi,
kung,
pero yung situation nga niya, apparently there's available seat on
yes,
bakit hindi siya doon dinala ni computer nyo?
I'm getting to that, Madam Chair. So when rebook siya to that flight, at that point in time, everything was fully booked. Now we work in a very dynamic pricing and sales environment where people may change their flights at any time. Pwede sila mag-rebook, pwede sila mag-refund. They can choose to go to another flight.
But ano rin kayo, dynamic din kayo in informing the passenger na we have one available seat for you. 'Di ba? Hindi yung ibebenta nyo yung upuan. 'Di ba? Binenta nyo eh. Eh, ang daming nag-aabang ng flight, 'di ba? Ano ba naman yung tinawagan nyo na alam nyo na si pasahero kailangan niya lumipad that day? But you are selling a seat that, technically that is the next available flight.
Madam Chair, if the seat does open up, the passenger who was disrupted, for as long as hindi niya kino-confirm yung bagong flight niya, may move into that flight for free. Wala pong charges. Having said that, we will take a look at how we can better communicate seat availability to our customers. The challenge is we fly 60,000, 65,000 people a day. So minsan napakaraming seats na sabay-sabay. So we have to check po kung paano, how we can better do it.
Baka there's a need for you to, I don't know, upgrade your system of booking para mas, siya, kumbaga, mas efficient, mas nakikita niya kung ano talaga yung, kasi parang yung system nyo naka-geared towards saan tayo kikita. 'Di ba? Kasi, katulad nga niya, nakabili siya ng ticket on that day at 14,000 pesos. When technically, you could have offered that seat dun sa nagambala dahil dun sa canceled flight.
And
At
ma'am,
saka,
that's-
yes, Madam Chair, there's a point also made by Professor Contreras. I think he's correct that we should really have more representatives that can actually take the calls of these clients, of the passengers. Kasi tayo pa naman yung isa sa top call center capital sa buong mundo. Tapos bots na yung ginagamit natin. At least the airlines, and I'm not singling out any particular airline, should have more representatives answer the calls. In that way, they're also accountable. Hindi lang dikahon yung sagot. At least ito talaga ma-explain nila, and the airlines themselves will be accountable to tell their representatives what really is going on. So again, that's a point that I think we should consider.
Siguro maganda malaman, meron ba kayong 24 hours na counter in all the airports that you service? Kasi katulad ng experience dun sa Japan, parang wala man lang ata silang nakausap or wala man lang parang umiikot para tignan kung ano na nangyayari sa kanila.
we have personnel stationed when there are operating flights, no. So meron pong tao naman na nandun. We do have ticketing offices po sa Manila tsaka sa Cebu.
And that's hindi, pero katulad nito yung sa Japan, it's an international flight. Meron ba kayong representative sa airport, international airport?
Meron po. But first of all, Madam Chair, I would like to, again, deeply apologize for that incident. In other disruptions, for example, nagkaroon rin naman, it happens, no? We don't want to compromise safety. We will have to suspend or cancel the flight. We have had many other opportunities where we are able to provide hotel accommodations, food, etc. In this case po sa Japan,
Yeah, so bakit hindi kayo naka-provide ng ganong...
in this case po sa Japan, we have to review with the ground handler kung bakit. One of the options we were looking at was to bring them to other carriers. Wala pong public transport daw nung gabing yun. We will review, we have been and we are reviewing yung ground handler standards namin sa Japan actually.
How many cases have you received na may mga ganitong pangyayari?
So far, Madam Chair, kailangan namin talaga balikan po yung Japan. Kasi pareho sa...
Hindi lang Japan, I mean, in your whole operation, how many complaints have you received?
Madam Chair, on average, in terms of complaints, we measure this in terms of ratios, no? Per 1,000 per thousand passengers we carry. In terms of ratio, I think we get 6 in the last report, not 6 for every 10,000 carried. In terms of total cases or calls, assistance that we provide our passengers daily, we serve around 2,000 to 3,000 passenger calls or inquiries every day. Of the 2 to 3,000 that we receive, around 90% are simple inquiries, no? Inquiries like, can I bring durian? Can I bring my flat iron? Things like that, which are pretty straightforward. The 10% are the ones who are with specific cases, no? The requests like passengers who are affected by cancellations. In fact, I think
And siguro, how many
resource-
flights have you canceled since January?
What we've done, no, we've canceled around 7% of flights. And that is really in response to the Pratt and Whitney, with all of the supply chain issues. We've already done so in moving forward.
So that 7% started January? Or ito lang yan? You just canceled?
Cumulative po is around 7%. Now, the reasons for cancellations can vary. It could be because of nag-iba yung airport operating times.
Or lightning? May mga lightning,
Hindi naman po
diba?
lightning. Pwede rin po, consequential siya. There's various reasons po.
Madam Chair, alam mo, hindi lang
Yes,
Cebu
Henry.
Pacific, hindi lang Cebu Pacific ang problema dito ha. Mismong flagship carrier natin ay marami rin mga reklamo. Yung iba, yung flight na narinig ko PR-103 June 11, yung ibang pasahero na move sa June 15. Pati naman yung maintenance din, at least masasabi ko yung crew members talaga ng PAL at ng ating mga ibang airlines talagang maasikaso. Pero makita mo, minsan well, ito mga cosmetic na lang, pero ilang taon na rin, magbabayad ka ng flight, yung upuan mo hindi magre-recline, hindi, yung ibang mga amenities hindi gumagana. I mean, flagship carrier, di ba? Pinaglalaban natin na maganda yung serbisyo natin, pero kung yung pasilidad naman ay hindi pa rin naayos. Kaya hindi lamang to problema ng iilang airline. Halos lahat din na merong prangkisa dito sa ating bansa. Kaya dapat talaga siguro medyo magising-gising ng konti. Matagal na itong problema, hindi natin pwedeng sabihin dahil lamang sa pandemic or supply chain issue. Lalong-lalo na noon pa ito ang mga nangyayari.
Thank you, Sen. Grace. Yes, Sen. Risa.
Salamat, Madam Chair. Dahil nagsimula na rin sa topic na to kay Chief Lau kanina, and then we move to Chief Candice, who's the Chief for Customer Experience. Ano lang, dun sa customer service, well, I appreciated hearing yung apologies and yung intention to improve. I think not just communication but the actual practice. Halimbawa, we also received complaints, Madam Chair, about rude or indifferent airline ground staff. Yung isang ulat nga, binanggit pa na sabi ng isang miyembro ng ground staff na humarap sa kanila, pumili kayo ng budget airline. Huwag kayo mag-expect masyado. Unique selling proposition ninyo sa simula pa lang that you would move a bigger number of passengers for cheaper prices. Pero, syempre, expectation naming pasahero, ano pa rin, even if the tickets are cheap, and I strongly believe this, certain minimum standard of service should still be maintained. And tatanong ko rin yun sa cab mamaya. But just to say na yung timely communication before the terrible experiences can be experienced. Tapos kung nangyayari na rin lang or nangyari na, yun na nga, makataong pag-engage sa pasahero. And then the correct practices, whether ang piliing option ay refund or rebook or iba pa. I think that's one of the you could have told, not just you, but both or all airlines, pwede nyo sanang kinommunicate timely fashion sa riding public, nagkakaproblema sa spare parts, kung hindi nyo ang gustong sabihing global supply chain, spare parts, para medyo naabisuhan kami. And then, do not overbook in the middle of a supply chain problem. And then, kung magkakaproblema pa rin, yung makatao namang pakikipag-ugnayan during and after. So yun po. And salamat Madam Chair at Sen JV.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, segundohan ko rin. I think this is very important. While we're still having this problem right now, dapat siguro yung ground staff would be more courteous, more patient. Kasi totoo lang I hope you take this constructively. Yung ground staff ng Cebu Pac, medyo mas masungit talaga. Sabi nga na parang budget airline yung ugali. Sabi nila, ano daw yan kasi contracted, no? Contractor ba sila? They're not. I hope that you can tell the agency if they're in the agencies na to be more patient and be more courteous, lalo especially with these people, mga OFWs, vacation, di ba?
Sen JV,
Please.
kasi yung sa ground crew, hindi rin sila properly compensated. Di ba? Kung araw-araw sila yung minumura, kulang baka one of these days, baka sa sobrang galit ng pasahero, baka may mambato na sa kanila, di ba? So baka kailangan din tignan yung situation ng ground crew. Kasi nakita naman natin dun sa video, nakakaawa din sila.
Yeah, because they receive also the brunt nung galit ng lahat ng ano, but I think we really have to do something about it. Ang gusto lang naman ng mga commuters, mga riding public, yung may nakakausap. Information, and be honest, no? Kasi minsan, nagtataka tulad namin noon, may experience, so po natulog ako sa Cebu, sabi, delayed lang, late arrival of aircraft. Pero umabot ng 6 o'clock from 9 o'clock. Sana nakapag-check-in na sana kami. Di ba? Things like those. So, siguro Madam Chair, if I may ask, kasi ang sabi ng Cebu Pac is really a supply chain problem, no? Pratt and Whitney backlog. Ang Philippine Airlines ba? Do you can I check? Can we confirm that do you also encounter the same problem? Kasi may mga A321s din kayo na NEO eh. So we want to find out.
Yes, Senator. So before anything else, magandang hapon po sa ating magigiting na senator. And we would like to thank the Honorable Committee for having given Philippine Airlines also the chance to share our experiences and the measures that we have been undertaking to address most especially the concerns and needs of the affected passengers. Senator, we do confirm that like Cebu Pacific, our operations have been affected by the global supply chain shortage that is currently ongoing. We do acknowledge, Senators, that in the past several weeks, it has been most challenging for PAL. The past several weeks, most especially, considering that we have experienced an increased number of our aircraft that is on preventive maintenance. Most of these are unscheduled. And we also acknowledge that this came at a time that when travel is at its peak, given its summer season, we had the June 12 long holiday. So it's really very unfortunate. We're not offering any excuses. We are fully aware of the inconvenience to our passengers. Kaya po humihingi kami ng sinserong paumanhin sa publiko sa aming mga pasahero. We give you, our dear senators, our passengers, and the public, our assurances that we continue to work in order to bring our operations to normalcy and to extend to our passengers what is expected of Philippine Airlines. To share, senators, at the moment, today as we speak, PAL has a total of 3 aircraft on extended maintenance. 5 are on ground awaiting maintenance work, and 5 have been parked indefinitely. Part of the 5 that has been parked, Senator, this was since last year because these are our A321 NEOs powered by the Pratt and Whitney engine. So that we made that very difficult and deliberate decision to park 3 of our latest A321s last year Why? Because we wanted to ensure that we do not stretch our equipment and our aircraft to their limits. Again, this is founded on operational safety. So we had to make that deliberate decision to park these three A321neos. As to our other suppliers, it becomes very complex, senators. Why? Because, they operate across all regions of the world. You have in Europe, in the US, etc. And logistically, it becomes very difficult. And because of again, we're not offering excuses. We just want to share what we have experienced. We now have to wait long queues for for T8 for turnaround time. If the standard before was 60 days, now it doubles. So sometimes it's 120 days waiting or even more waiting for a component part of an engine, of an IFE, etc. So it's
Pero,
now what have we
pero
done? Yes.
nagbawas na ho kayo ng flights?
Yes, Senator. So, what have we done? The most important thing I think that we have done is since January 2023, we have already implemented what we call a proactive reduction of our flight schedules. So, we ensure that flight schedules are at the minimum. At the minimum, we cancel what we think can be canceled given the situation at least 7 days prior or even more. So this gives us the time to give advance notice and advisories to our passengers. Our objective really is to minimize people who are at the airport.
So you don't, yung nangyayari sa SEPAC na you cancel 2 days before a flight.
Our plan.
You also have that
No, our
similar
plan.
policy.
Yes, Senator, our plan is minimum of 7 days prior to a departure, a published flight departure. If we need to cancel a flight, then we cancel a flight. So we've been doing this proactively since January of 2023. And by so doing, we are able to, somehow manage better, perhaps, our on-the-day cancellations. We're not saying that we do not have on-the-day cancellations. We do admit that we still have on-the-day cancellations, but at least we are trying to keep it on the minimum. And
But if you do the 7-day prior notice, kailan nyo sila nabubuk? What would be the ilang days yung next available flight for PAL?
Your Honor, it really varies. It depends on the routes. There are some routes where we have, lesser flights. So, for example, if we fly only 7 days a week, then it becomes a longer waiting period for the passenger. However, and I will pass this on to my colleague Josen, we do have several options that we offer to our passengers, the affected passengers. We are actively calling them out. We're actively seeking out our passengers to give them what we think are good options that they can avail of. Josen.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairpersons and Your Honors. So to add to what my colleague Attorney De Castro mentioned, well, first of all, we want to emphasize that when we do have last-minute cancellations or on-the-day cancellations, which are of course a challenge that we have to deal with, then our first option is when we can, we operate replacement flights. For example, if a flight from Manila to Los Angeles tonight is canceled, and we normally try to have a replacement flight the next day so all the passengers can be accommodated. But that, of course, is an option we cannot always do because of a lot of things, including the supply chain problem, the extended maintenance. So we are limited po in our in the options that we can take to adjust the schedules. So what we do, of course, is we have enhanced our assistance to our passengers by allowing, of course, rebooking and rebooking for no charge. We also, of course, allow them to refund if they wish to do that, or to convert their fare into a travel credit.
Yung refund nyo would take how many months?
If it's cash, Your Honors, we can do that right away. It's a very short period of time. Pag minsan po it's paid for with a credit card, of course, then we have to go through the usual billing process. So that might take 2 or 3 cycles.
Sorry,
Madam
sa ano yan, Cebu Pacific, pag cash, on the spot din? Or I'm
Similar.
similar?
Pero karamihan naman po ng payment is through either credit card or e-wallet po nakikita. Bihirang-bihira na po yung
So
cash.
kahit sa GCash, hindi rin, may ganun din proseso like a credit card?
Madam Chair, normally pagka ganito po sa payments, we need to look at that particular refund case, no? Our experience, just like PALS, if it's a credit card where we are in control of the process, we're able to process the refunds within, say, 2 weeks. But that is from us as a merchant to our acquiring bank, right? But then from the acquiring bank to the card issuer or the issuing bank, doon sometimes hindi na namin mako-control yung process na yon. And that's why we say normally 2 billing cycles, but at least where it's controllable po by the airline, we process it quickly. For GCash, faster, but sometimes if a passenger uses multiple payments, kunwari, I have this, half is GCash, half is credit card, that becomes more complex. And so sometimes dun tayo nagkakaroon ng kaunting delay.
And then the whole time, nasan yung pera? Who holds the money? Was it the
Wala na
credit
po.
card company? Is it the bank? Or it's already with you?
Once we've transmitted, it's no longer with us. It would be either with the acquiring bank. or
And
it
the
would
whole
be with
time,
acquiring
yung
bank.
kumbaga hindi pa sila nagre-refund, nasan yung pera?
Pag hindi pa nagre-refund,
Kunya, hindi pa nila tinitrigger yung process of refunding
the passenger po,
the passenger. Where is the money?
it would be with us.
Kasi nasa inyo. And then pag nagpa-refund siya, dun lang kayo, I guess, bibigyan nyo kay credit card
Correct.
para
Kay acquiring bank.
maano niya dun sa, ma-deduct niya dun sa billing niya.
Yes po.
Okay, and
Interjection, Madam Chair.
last time. So, do you have a data? Kasi hindi naman lahat ng passengers, I would assume, magre-refund, di ba?
Hindi po.
Not all. So, how much money do you have na hindi na nag-refund?
Madam Chair, are we just referring to people with disrupted flights and canceled flights?
Yes.
Yes.
Meron pa bang ano? Ano
I
pa
mean,
yung
of
isang
course,
type?
people who have booked ahead of time and have not decided to change their flight, of course, we will hold that, no? So maybe if we can just refer to those who have
Sige,
been
yung
disrupted,
mga canceled
canceled
flights.
flights. Based on our data, around 50 to 60% of the passengers who are disrupted actually opt to rebook, right? Around 30% would then just store it in the travel fund kasi that one is instant. And if I'm a regular traveler, then I'll just keep it in the fund tapos the next time I book, gagamitin ko na lang po. And then the balance is refund actually. Actually less than 10% po. Around, I think 7% yung nagre-refund.
So, bihira yung wala na silang ginagawa. Yung parang, ayoko na kayo makausap, so, may ganun din. And may ganun din, yung parang,
Wala. I think
wala na,
I think
parang
kasi
forgone na lang.
hindi po. Kasi,
So,
sorry. We have the data for those who have actioned nga their rebooking, and for those who have not actioned, sorry, I don't know. We'll have to come back kung
siguro
sino
can you
yung
just
may
can you
mga
submit? And then
gumagalaw.
how would the passenger know? Kasi pag nag-cancel kayo, kunyari, ito yung binayaran niyang seat, di ba? And then i-rebook niyo siya to another flight. How would that passenger know na yung value nung nirebook niyang, na binigay niyang bagong upuan is exactly the same price that they've paid for? How would the passenger know? Kasi di ba, malay mo, binayaran ko 20, technically 10 lang pala tong ino-offer niyo sa amin. So, kung tutusin, dapat meron pa akong 10. Kasi ang binayaran ko 20, pero ang value na binibigay niyo sa akin is only 10. Would the passenger have that, access to information na of the same value yung binibigay niyo?
Madam Chair, I think that that's possible. And the reverse is also possible, especially for our passengers who buy, say, the piso fare or the low fares, no? Wherein if I am disrupted and I paid, say, piso fare, for my seat and I am reaccommodated to a flight tomorrow or later today, they also don't pay extra, no?
But the information for that is not available to the passenger,
Hindi
right?
hindi po. Kasi our fares are dynamic. So, yeah. So our fares are dynamic in the same way that, in the same way that if I rebook a lower fare because it's disrupted and it happens to be a higher fare na lang yung next available, then we don't charge extra for that.
Okay, can you submit na lang yung mga instances na from lower, higher yung binigay nyo, and then from higher, binigay nyo naman lower? Would you have that data?
Madam Chair, if I may, we will not charge anything if it is the fault of Cebu Pacific or even if it's force majeure. If that person revokes, there should be no charge. There should be no additional collection.
Walang charge.
Yes.
But kunyari, kung ako, binili ko yung ticket, yung seat na yun for 20,000. Tapos yung binibigay nyo pala sa akin seat, technically worth 10,000 lang. So technically, di ba parang yung passenger, lugi din.
Pero hindi namin po tinitingnan yung individual seat price po kasi the reason we're
Yeah,
able,
but the passenger, tinitignan nila yung individual price nila, di ba?
but the reason we are able, Madam, with your indulgence, the reason we are able to sell mga 1 peso fares, no, is because we also have the ability to sell something higher. So in that sense, medyo dynamic yung pag-price. So at any point in time, kunyari, nagbayad ako ng piso at na-disrupt yung flight ko, pag nag-rebook ako tomorrow, whether the value of the ticket is 20,000, 5,000, 4,000 is not
May naintindihan ako. That is, yun yung ano nyo, na parang abonado kayo, di ba? But paano ko yung passenger naman pala yung technically parang abonado?
Yeah, Madam Chair, we understand, no, where you're coming from. And if the point is how can we make sure we preserve that value, whereas you paid, kunwari, 10,000, then ang available fare is lower, then do you get your money back? Actually, the best recommendation we have, and that's why we provide the options for our passengers, is to travel fund it. So if you paid 10,000, and you travel fund it, you get the 10,000 back. And you can actually choose to buy a lower fare than that, or you can actually
May
buy
mga
two tickets.
instances na nangyari ba sa inyo na nag-avail nga ng travel fund, tapos, well, sana wag mangyari sa iyo. Na-cancel pa rin yung flight nila. Kumbaga, twice na silang nabibiktima or 3 times. May mga ganong reports ba sa inyo?
Madam Chair, we would love to guarantee and say that wala nang mga ganitong cancellations, no?
No,
Just
based
from the-
on your data na kumbaga, let's say last Feb, na-cancel yung flight, nag-avail siya ng travel fund, tapos bumiyahe ulit siya ng May, tapos na-cancel pa rin yung flight niya. May mga ganong instances.
It's possible. It really goes both ways. Eh. It can go up, it can go down. I think if I can just, I think state this, no. We don't want to cancel flights for our passengers. It's bad business. We don't like to disrupt our passengers as well. That's why we give options, no. I think in as much as what we can control, for as long as we will also not compromise safety, we will operate the flight, no? That's what we want.
Siguro for ano lang, when you say cancellation, it's the whole flight, no? I mean, if correct terminology, pag canceled, it's the whole flight, right? It's not just the passenger.
You wanna say it?
yes, ma'am. So there's cancellations. So we would cancel the entire flight. Then there's also equipment downgrades. Then there's also, by the way, equipment upgrade. So kunyari yung binanggit po ni Senator JV kanina, may 180-seater na nasira, pero meron kaming available 220-seater. Linilipad rin namin siya para matuloy po yung biyahe. That happens quite,
Sige,
that happens
so I guess
both ways.
baka pwede nga paki-investigate na lang paano nangyari na yung sa staff ko na-cancel siya pero yung flight niya hindi naman talaga canceled.
Yun po yung mismong downgrade. So for example, si 5J123, dating
Kasi
A3,
200 yung kasha.
Opo.
Para kasi 180 na lang. So may 20 na
Opo.
maka-cancel.
So it's the same flight number pa rin po. So minsan kasi sinasabi nila, bakit ako na-cancel? Natuloy naman yung flight.
Right.
Sa totoo lang, natuloy yung flight, pero mas maliit po yung eroplano. So instead na i-cancel namin yung buong flight, may sasalba po namin yung 180 out of
Dito
220.
na lumalabas yung system generated. Kung sino yung 20 na aalisin niya dun sa flight na yun.
So in the case po of your chief of staff, ang nakita po namin is 83 people ang na-disrupt. So binigyan po namin sila ng option. Number one, nag-communicate kami sa lahat ng tao on board. Some of them took rebooking, refund. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, hindi nakarating po yung communication sa chief of staff niya. And for that, I deeply, truly apologize.
Nakakuha din siya ng email. But how do you address yung yan, punta siya ng Japan, nakabook, well, katulad na nangyari sa inyo, di ba? Nakabook ka na ng hotel mo, nakabook ka na ng tour mo. Ay, wala na yun eh. Kasi you already lost what? 2-3 days from your vacation. Parang mali na walang compensation na makukuha. Di ba? Dun sa overbooking, malinaw na kailangan yung, may option na mag-auction kayo, di ba? But ito, parang, walang ganong walang ganong balik dun sa mga pasahero na na-disrupt yung schedule nila.
Madam Chair, as part of our enhanced customer care process, nagbibigay na po kami ng round-trip travel voucher if we cancel the flight 72 hours ahead of time. We're very cognizant that this is really an inconvenience to our passengers because if we had informed them substantially much earlier, the chances are mas mataas po yung chance na makapagpagawa ng alternative travel plans. For that, we are truly sorry.
So ngayon aside from the rebooking, may additional pa sila, travel fund.
So what we've done is ang normal po is rebooking, refund, travel fund. Tapos if you are disrupted on the day itself, bibigyan namin po kayo ng one-way travel voucher. Ang ginawa po namin under this enhanced customer policy because of all of these supply chain issues is we are providing a round-trip travel vouchers, not just if you're canceled on the day itself, but if we cancel your flight within 72 hours. That is a new policy that we've implemented.
This effective when?
We effected it May 22nd.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
Madam Chair, just for that yung travel fund, I mean a receipt of an email from Giovanni Araki from Iloilo who owns a travel agency. Ang issue nila ay non-payment of travel fund. Siguro I'll just give it to you. Hope you can give attention to this.
Yes, through the chair, we will take a look at it. Thank you.
So before siguro with the indulgence of Senator Risa, given the situation now, yung supply problem, Pratt & Whitney issues, both Cebu Pacific and Philippine Airlines, which operates the NEOs, and AirAsia, ano yung magiging remedy natin ngayon in the coming months or years habang ganito yung kinakaharap natin problema, yung supply chain with yung backlog ng energy, ng engines, no?
Sa NJV, bawal lumipad.
In fact, a lot of planes are grounded. Kumbaga, hindi nyo na, you didn't get your money's worth. Bago itong mga NEO, panay grounded, di ba? Philippine Airlines has 3. Cebu Pacific also has that same. Mas okay pa pala, Madam Chair, yung mga luma, mas reliable, 20,000 cycles against the advanced NEOs na 6,000 or even less. So ano magiging remedy natin? So that our flying customers will have something to look forward to na improvement.
Through the chair, clearly the challenges have been unprecedented and quite, especially for Cebu Pacific, very sudden because of all of the freak incidents that we've had. No? So what we are doing as a mitigation is initially we are going to be reducing the number of flights para magbagay po yung number of aircraft to the number of passengers. Pangalawa, we will take into account itong mga Pratt & Whitney issues. Actually, as early as last year, na-anticipate na namin siya. Nag-order po kami ng extra spare engines. We have been in close contact with Pratt and Whitney until March of 20, and we were led to believe na magkakaroon po kami ng access to spare engines, no? Nung March 2023, binanggit sa amin, there are no more engines, no? So part of the process to mitigate this is again, make schedule reductions, no? We will also lease additional aircraft para tumaas yung spare availability namin. So instead of us just having 3 spares, we already now have 4 spares. By the end of the year, we will have 6 spares. No? This is in order, so in case magkaroon ng unexpected grounding, for example, ng aircraft, regardless of reason, we will be able to have the standby aircraft ready to take over those flights. So we have reduced the schedules. We are leasing more aircraft to come in. We are increasing our standby coverage.
The Philippine Airlines, siguro
And
ano
JV, baka we can hear na rin from AirAsia
AirAsia rin.
na online.
Okay.
Siguro Philippine Airlines muna and then AirAsia.
Yeah. Senator, thank you for your question. So, we insofar as your question is concerned, safety will always be a priority for Philippine Airlines. That is a certainty. We will never compromise safety above all. So what have we been doing given the supply chain issue? As mentioned already earlier, Senator, we have the rationalized schedule that is our advance cancellations. Also currently, we are actively seeking for more sources of critical parts, suppliers. As mentioned earlier, we have about 1,000 suppliers worldwide. We are trying to source more. We have an additional aircraft that is coming in first week of July. That is an A321 CEO that will join our fleet soonest. We are in current arrangement for additional 2 aircraft lease arrangements, one Q400 and one A330, and these are now being finalized. We are hoping that these 2 additional aircraft will help resolve the issues and fix the issues soon. And we are expecting that there will be another aircraft which is currently on ground that will soon be fixed, and expected that this will join our fleet flying soon again by the first week of August. So we are hopeful that these measures will at least help resolve the concerns that we have at the moment. And of course, we have, this is still about 2 years from now, but we are pleased to share that we are expecting already our first delivery of an A350-1000 Airbus slated for delivery in 2025. So as we speak, we are engaged already in the final signing of the documents for that purchase, Your Honors. And we also continue to coordinate with our airport authorities. We are asking for additional space, for example, at the airport where we could place more customer relations officers, so that in cases of disruptions, we have more people who can attend to our passengers, our OFWs, our tourists, etc. Ito po yung mga-
Tapos na ho ba yung birth pains nyo from transferring to Terminal 1? O nag-a-adjust pa din?
Going. You want to take that?
Yes, Madam Chair. I would say ongoing, of course, but we are very well encouraged because we have been collaborating with of course, our partners, the MIAA and the authorities, to make sure that this is as smooth and hassle-free as possible. And so far, so good po naman. I mean, there was some confusion in the early days, but I believe by now that's been straightened out, and we are now into Terminal 1 for international flights. We are still working on, of course, our own Mabuhay Lounge to be set up there at Terminal 1. So that is a work in progress, and we hope to have that ready later this year. But in the meantime, our premium class and Mabuhay Elite passengers and all are being taken care of through partner lounges. So we still serve that the premium market through those partner lounges at Terminal 1. So given that, we will continue to the collaborative process because that's really very important. And we today also we have just transferred to the north wing of Terminal 2 for our domestic flights. So that particular change has also taken effect. It's the same terminal, but we have moved a different entrance, different check-in area, when we hope to have more space and more. And of course, that will mean more convenience for our passengers. So that's the transition. And unfortunately, it was timed at the same time that we had some cancellations in the past week. So we really have to do our very best to take care of our passengers through all of this. We do want to emphasize that we recognize, as Senator Poe as well mentioned earlier, that and the other senators in the committee, that we we really have a special responsibility to our traveling public. We also very much recognize that we carry the flag and carry the name of the Philippines. So we are not going to accept a situation where we will have chronic delay problems or cancellation problems. So all of these measures that have been explained by Attorney De Castro and our team, we hope is a sign of our commitment to make sure that we fulfill our responsibility to the traveling public, and we will keep on doing that, Your Honors.
Madam Chair, interjection
Yes,
before we
yes,
move on to
Anissa.
AirAsia. Salamat po, and bago ko rin balikan yung mga tanong tungkol sa rebooking problems sa Cebu Pac. Pero kanina dun sa tanong ni Chair sa PAL about the other option sa mga na-deny boarding dahil sa overbooking, yung refund. What about tulad ng tinanong ko sa CAB kanina, what about the international travel tax? Binabayaran ng mga OFWs natin and other Filipino international passengers. Pati ba yun nire-refund, and by when? What time frame?
Yes, Madam Chair, that is also refunded. We refund everything that the passengers pay for with the.
Kung credit card yung payment dun sa travel tax, ganun din yung, they will have to go through that long process, no?
We have to work with the credit card company, so you have that billing cycle there. So that's the situation for the refunds.
Thank you, VP Perez Atagli. Thank you, Madam Chair.
On AirAsia,
Madam
July.
Chair. Madam Chair.
Pakisagot lang yung question ni Senator JV.
Yes, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, thank you for giving AirAsia the opportunity to speak to the committee today. We just want to inform the committee that we share the challenges mentioned by Cebu Pacific and Philippine Airlines as regards the global supply chain issue and the aircraft supply. Hindi ko na po ulitin yon. And we would like to inform the committee that safety will always be a priority of Philippines AirAsia, as is our service to our guests. Our flight schedule po is matched with the number of aircraft until the end of the year. We coordinate closely with the authorities for our operations. And we are also working on expanding our fleet from 14 right now to 20 by the end of the year, so that we can better serve the Filipino population po and the tourists. On our compliance with APDR, we would like to reassure the committee that the PA observes the passenger's right to accurate information, to receive the full value of the service that they purchase, and their right to compensation. So yun pong mga passengers, we call them guests, who are not able to fly as scheduled, we offer them the option to rebook their flight or to have a credit account or to receive a full refund po of what they pay to the airline. Thank you po.
Thank you. Siguro, maybe we can hear na from DOT. Kasi in light of this problem, parang nagbibiroan nga, binibiro ko nga yung mga kasama ko dito na parang, wag muna pala nating i-promote yung Pilipinas. Kasi parang technically, di ba, parang we cannot accommodate yung demand ngayon ng industry. Yes, Yusek Tamano.
Yes. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Can we read our statement? Yeah.
Please.
Good afternoon to our distinguished senators, representatives of the various sectors in the travel and tourism industry, and our tourists. On behalf of Tourism Secretary Cristina Garcia Frasco, we would like to thank the Senate Committee on Tourism, chaired by the Honorable Senator Maria Lourdes Nancy Binay, for inviting the Department of Tourism in today's discussion on the proposed Senate Resolution number 575 with regard to the complaints about airline overbooking, offloading, and booking glitches. The DOT is one with the public in looking for a workable solution in the improvement of convenience and connectivity of all air travelers, especially tourists in the country. The fact is that air transport service is a significant and indispensable component of tourism in a vastly archipelagic country such as ours. From the very start of the current administration, we have heeded the call of our President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. in helping build tourism as one of the pillars of the country's economy. In doing so, it has been part of our goal to make travel more vibrant, convenient, comfortable, safe, and reliable to both our domestic and international tourists. We do believe that the hitches that the air transport riding public currently experience is something that can be resolved, given that the practices of our domestic airline industry is largely in unison with those of international standards. We welcome today's hearing and discussions with the belief from the very start that tourism is a whole-of-nation approach and thus requires a consensual understanding from the different sectors of society on how we could more harmoniously move together toward the development of a progressive tourism and travel industry. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yusek Shah, are you in discussions with, I don't know, DOTR, with the airlines? Kasi di ba, ang projection is magi-increase yung tourist arrivals natin. But we have this supply chain issue. So may kinakraft na ba yung DOT na strategy how to minimize yung disruption nung expected tourist arrivals natin?
Madam Chairman, yes, we have. Early on, a year ago or 11 months ago, our Secretary Frasco, and Secretary Bautista signed a memorandum of agreement. No, we have closer collaboration between the two agencies. In fact, we started already training airport staff at several airports, including MIA in Cebu and other airports across the country. We call this
Pero wala pa kayong help desk, no?
sorry.
Na DOT yung nagmamanage. At the moment, help desk sa mga airports, wala, no?
We have staff at MIA and Mactan International
Meron.
Airport.
So I remember nung pandemic, dati may naka-station sa airports eh. So, tinuloy niya yon.
Oo. Actually, before the pandemic pa, Madam Chair, meron na tayo. So sa MIA meron tayong 9 and in Mactan we have 5. And these FBSE trainings or Filipino Brand of Service Excellence training is really for everyone working at the airports. So from security guards, even Public Affairs Office, Office of Transport Security, security guards, Bureau of Quarantine, and even yung nagtitinda sa mga airports, no, everyone. So the aim here is to make them customer friendly and help them in the daily operations. Also, yes. Also, Madam Chair, the DOT and DOTR went to Clark precisely to reduce the congestion at MIA. And this happened, I think, a few weeks ago, mentioned by AD Arcilia. And we met the stakeholders in Clark. Secretary Frasco was there. And we are convincing all the airlines, domestic and foreign, to operate at Clark para ma-reduce yung congestion dito sa MIA. We also are um, we have routes development office at the DOT. So ang ginagawa po namin ngayon, binababa namin sa regional offices yung routes development. So the regional offices now works closely with CAAP and the airports to market their airports and to check also.
Pero for the meantime na may problema yung airlines natin na parang based dun sa mga statements nila, I don't think technically kaya nyo i-provide yung required seats, right? Kasi nga may supply yung mga aeroplano nyo, grounded. So ano yung, tapos dadating yung mga turista, how do we, ano ba yan, minimize the negative effect?
Well, ang advice po namin kasi they're also our stakeholders is really customer handling. We would like to help them, Madam Chair. But of course, when it comes to, for example, Mactan or NAIA, the answers that are asked by the passengers cannot really be given by DOT since we will have to work together closely. In fact, even the airport staff cannot answer those. It will really be the airlines who will have to face the passengers, the public. So we advise our stakeholders, the airlines, to improve on their customer, service.
Sen Risa, or maybe you can ask yung DOJ, ano yung pwedeng habol ng mga pasahero na na-disrupt yung kanilang schedule?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. The DOJ has always been at the forefront of safeguard of the rights, especially of the little people, yung hindi nakakasalita. No? In this case, it's consumers in the form of passengers. And we appreciate the context of the discussion, especially on the per complaint basis, but we'd like to put it in the context of the industry governance framework. No? Passengers, when they actually book, it's actually a contract of carriage. And hindi lang masyadong na-emphasize, but the diligence requirement is that of extraordinary diligence, much higher than the diligence of a good father. And commercial revenue, everything, safety, is already subsumed under that extraordinary standard of diligence. Inconvenience is the symptom, naramdaman ng mga pasahero yon. But actually, it's a breach of a contract. So we'd like to put that in that context. And we also wish to give a look behind that. Back in 2010 to 2016, we already worked with the Cebu Pacific on the piso fare. No? Hindi dapat piso, dapat yung plus idagdag, no? The fine prints. No? They have responded on that. We've also worked on the JAO 2012 during that time to push for our first ever joint air passenger bill of rights. No? And then the EDRC may recall, last August, we actually convened already DOJ, DOTR, CAB specifically, and DTI to head off this issue. We saw it already in August that the supply chain revenge travel will come. But unfortunately, nothing much came out of that. And we are actually pleased that airlines today are owning up and saying sorry right up front instead of trying to look for excuses, instead of saying meetings after meetings with no results. So that is the perspective we would like to bring in, and we'd like to help the committee, as we have always done, to put a rule of framework. In fact, to have a very proactive industry roadmap to help not only the airlines in their dealings with regulators where we are not competitive, to help regulators understand the industry, and of course legislation to put it all together. Would like to present a few points. No, one is maybe the chair can ask for the plan of the recovery of the airlines. If it's a 2-year pandemic recovery program, wag siguro sa ganun ng 2 years, maybe 3 years, no? And the numbers will be much easier. Dili na mo apas, Senator Bato, mas relax na tatanan, no? That's one aspect you can do. Also, one other consumer right that we'd like to push for is yung opt-in, opt-out. When you book for airline tickets, dapat hindi automatic check, no? And this is a pain for PAL and Cebu Pacific, where opt-in, na-check mo na. Kung hindi man nababantayan, na-charge na siya. No, you also may want to look at the travel insurance margins. How much is the claim? Magkano yung payout for the add-on of a travel insurance, which is a high margin add-on revenue. So these are small things that that will improve the whole passenger experience. But on the issue of cancellation, we agree with all the statements of the senators. In fact, it is ironic, Madam Chair, that all the passenger airlines, they came to you, all of you individually and collectively, for all of these complaints, no? When the first line of defense should be the airline response and regulatory response, no? Dapat hindi naabot sa Senate resolution if we handle it level at the ground level. But having said that, regardless of the cancellations, the first point is really plain speaking, no? Yung honesty in dealing. One of the things we also have pushed for is the use of simple language like, we are sorry for delayed for delay of your flight because of reason of the late arrival of the incoming aircraft, which is actually does not mean anything. No, mga ganon, no? And if there's a cancellation here and there, to be upfront and say, what is this? And also maybe to set simple standards, no? Senator Bato, we say biscuit in Bisaya. If biscuit is not an acceptable merienda, what would be a market sensible X number of hours of delay to provide? In fact, when we sat with the MIA and CAAP board, where we have pushed for major reforms, including tinatanggal natin yung reforms, moving the terminals to prevent more trafficking cases, it's a whole of government approach, hindi siya isa-isa. Removing some of these forms, adding the terminals, working with our systemic and structural constraints, no? But plain speaking will go a long way. Causes of cancellation can be communicated clearly, and quote unquote, the burden should not be on the consumer. Yung ikaw yung na-delay, ikaw yung na-breach of contract. And yet, if you write the cab would reply and say, please provide 10 more other details. No, it's safe to say, wag ka na magreklamo. I really tested this as an frequent flyer of both airlines to feel the misery of all of these aspects, no? So the onus, the burden of proof should actually be on the other side, hindi yung passenger. And when you say next available flight, hindi yung next available flight is 10 days. No? The next available flight should be mamayang hapon, bukas, time-bound. No? We're corporate people. We should be able to speak corporate language. No? So I think the TWG can handle this down. We've also worked with the airlines on some of their industries, no? Including standardization of contracts of leases for their planes, para they don't have to do a lot of regulations. We're also investing in fighting bird strikes, no, which is not an airline problem, but the problem of government. We have to protect our airports friendly and protect them from all of that. Yung asphalting, yung preventive maintenance, 24-hour cycle. If we have congestion problems, we increase the number of operating hours, no, not try to put it sunrise to sunlight, no. May ilaw naman sa gabi. We can fly naman 24/7. So going towards the TWG and ultimately for substantive legislation, we have actually two major substantive legislative proposals. One is the Consumer Protection Act of 1992. The House is advanced stages. We don't have yet a champion in the Senate. Hopefully, consumer protection will cover technology consumer complaints as Shopee, Lazada, the whole range of that. Online booking, all of that can also be handled. The new forms of technology that affect consumers, credit card fraud, visa charges. Senator Rafi is not here, but yung motor vehicle lending, all those practices can be folded in to have a very consumer-centric society, because we are a nation of local demand. We have a lot of consumers, no? So we have to be number one there. That includes a review of the governance framework on who should be responsible for consumer protection. What we don't like as a passenger, Cebu Pacific, PAL, or Air Asia, is when all these things happen, you don't know where to go. No, for them, government, whether CAB, whether whatever initial it is, Senate it is, it's just one government that cares for them. Yung ibang aspect on hotlines, no, which is not hot actually. Umiinit lang yung telepono. Then 45 minutes you're on the phone. Sorry, your line has been terminated. You have to call again, no? Naka-cellphone ka because you're trying to rebook your flight. Tapos yung load mo. These are all very human concerns. And the DOJ, under the leadership of Secretary Remulla, has a special emphasis, no, his being background, on taking care of yung hindi nakakadalaw sa Senado, hindi makakabook ng flight, just grind and bear it. No? We have a very strong focus on this kind of people. The other legislation that we're looking at is also how we regulate the air industry. No? Right now, if we have 50 airports, we have 50 airport regulators. Mactan for Cebu, MIA for tigi-isa-isa. Can you imagine? 100 years from now, if we have 200 airports, we have 200 regulators. Then you have to deal with 200 different. But remember, the airline industry is a network, no? It should be neutral. We should help our airline, all the supply factors in it, come together and make it easier. Our last point, Madam Chair, is with the reduction of flights and all the changes, what we are forewarning is a spike in fares, no? Because there's a pent-up demand. A lot of people want to book. A few months from now, you will be hearing complaints of why our airfares are way too expensive. As it is, it's very expensive. And we want to put in a regulatory competition framework now that fares are deregulated for industry stakeholders to be responsible. Yun lang yung a few points that I would like to convey, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Do you, Yusek, are you part of the board ng CAB?
Yes, Kaap and Mia and
And then,
Mactan.
are you studying kung pwede i-update yung AO? For the meantime na hindi pa siya legislated.
It is. In fact, that is the easiest remedy. But the easiest remedy is about a good conversation here. Wala namang issue on the challenges that we're facing. We just have to look for certain issues. And instead of making a corporate recovery 2 years, make it 4 years, then all your metrics will be more relaxed. You know, you don't have to have that revenue optimization, which we understand is part of good governance for a corporation. Thank you.
Yes. Send that to me.
Yeah, I agree with you, Yusek, particularly on that point na sinabi mo na the consuming public doesn't know where to go. Lack of government presence. Sana yung CAB natin, yung DOTR, DTI, should be very proactive in this kind of issues. Dahil nga, ang madalas na sabihin ng taong bayan, palagi na, ipatulpo mo yan. O kaya mag-commit ng rapid tulpo in action. Ayun na lang palagi. Kaya surat kayo sa Senado. Lahat ng opisina namin nakatanggap ng mga letters coming from this complaining public na about this problem with Cebu Pacific. Kaya siguro nga magiging proactive yung ating Department of Tourism, yung ating CAB, yes, Civil Aeronautics Board, para alam ng taong bayan kung saan pupunta. It complicates the situation further. It adds up to the frustration of this disgruntled public, no? Disgruntled passengers. Kung wala sila mapuntahan, sabihin nila, ini-snub na nga kami ng Cebupac, ang sasagot sa amin doon, makina lang, robot ang sasagot sa amin. Wala kami mapuntahan gobyerno. Ang gobyerno, walang presensya doon sa airport kung paano kayo matulungan. So yun, this is an eye-opener, not only for the airline industries, kundi airline companies, kundi para na rin sa atin sa gobyerno. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Sen Bato. Sandali lang, Sir. Hindi, gusto ko lang tanong kay Professor Contreras tsaka kay Miss Monica. Did you write CAB? Or may ginawa ba kayong ganong hakbang to complain to any government agencies?
Well, Madam Chair, hindi na kasi sinulat ko na lang yung column ko para mas marami makabasa. And on that note, siguro very specific din pakiusap sa SEBPAC at saka sa ibang mga yung inyong yung travel voucher nyo, pwede ba huwag nyong lagyan ng cap na 180 days? Kasi parang pinipuwersa nyo yung traveler na mag-travel within 180 days, paano kung wala siyang plano? Pwede ba hindi nag-expire yun? Part of the, if that is.
Hindi ba siya part dapat nung sa gift certificate law na it does not expire? Technically. Oo. Saka pera niya yun eh. Oo. So kayo, did you file a complaint?
Madam Chair, hindi na po because the committee secretary reached out to me and informed me that there's an inquiry. So ito na po yung venue.
Actually, sinabi mo, Yusek, I agree with you kasi yung staff ko sumulat sa CAB ang reply sa kanya, please submit your itinerary, your photo of your conversation. So parang parang masyado na akong busy to do it for, total nakabiyahe naman ako. So why pursue the case, 'di ba? Which I think ganun din yung mindset ng mga kababayan natin. Na parang I think parang may epekto din dun sa airline kasi alam naman nila na hanggang post lang naman kayo sa SOCMED, 'di ba? That's it. Well, hindi naman kami mababawian ng franchise or si CAB nga on their own, they don't investigate dun sa reklamo. Kailangan may burden of proof pa dun sa, nahassle ka na nga dun sa ordeal mo with the airline. Yung government agency, i-hassle ka pa ulit para, for you to prove na nahassle ka, di ba? So, baka kailangan i-review natin yung sistema, how to be more, yun na nga, katulad yung sinabi niya na yung consumer natin should always be the priority at hindi tayo agad dagdag dun sa burden sa kanila to prove na nagambala sila. So baka kailangan i-review, hindi ko alam kung yung CAB, kulang sila sa personnel that will handle mga complaints. Hindi ko alam, may sistema ba sila na nag-hearing sila or pinapatawag niya si airline para sabihin, oh, may report kami, ito yung flight, bakit ganito, ganyan, ganyan. May ganun ba silang, I guess siguro si Asik Esquivel from DOTR.
Well, dumating na rin si ED ho. Pero yes, kung may mga complaints na file sa CAB ho, they do call hearings, pinapatawag ang airline, and then nagpa-follow up din sila sa airlines or nagpa-follow up din sa complainant to determine kung, let's say, nabayad na ba yung refund. Because may nangyayari, for example, sabi ng airline, you'll be paid within 2 weeks. Pero hindi dumating yung refund. Si CAB din, yung legal staff nila, they do call the airline or the passenger, I mean, na, oh, nabayad na ba na, na-refund
Fund
na
na
ba
ba?
kayo? Kung hindi pa, CAB staff will also call the airline and follow up.
And may kaakibat ba yun na penalty kay airline? Ito nga, lumalabas parang si credit card, meron din siyang, parang bahagi din siya dun sa maling sistema.
Yes, Your Honor, Madam Chair. Medyo first is siguro I will try to differentiate between complaints. There are certain complaints which are something like an open and shut case, meaning that there's no argument about the issues, it is admitted. So it's easier to move to the second phase, which is how to expedite the claim. Those are simple cases. We only communicate by email, make follow-ups, but there are certain complaints that would require a certain amount of facts because they involve questions of facts that is critical. Like, for example, a passenger is claiming that he is entitled to refund on a no-show because he was sick. So this would need certain inquiry. Do you have a medical certificate? And what is the law? What is the term in the contract of carriage? So may mga pagkakaiba po yung mga complaints. Pero in general, yung mga easily disposable, we just facilitate. And in fact, we have also social media. So I will take this opportunity to invite the riding public to join us in our webpage, our Facebook, we have interactive naman po yan. So we can connect and we can improve also our engagement.
Pero on your own ho, nagmo-monitor ba kayo ng mga social media posts na may ganitong reklamo? And then on your own, you will conduct your own investigation. May ganun ho ba kayong initiative?
Ito po, no, we have tried, kasi ang social media po is a very dynamic tool of consumer protection, but it also has its own dynamics in the sense that it is very strong in terms of information dissemination and in bringing together people that have common problems so that they can have a louder voice. Pero pagdating po dun sa i-engage namin sila, medyo may problem po in terms of, halimbawa,
i-engage yung airline.
Oh,
Kasi di ba parang,
yes po.
di ba sa SOCMED post, nandun eh, alam mo na nga yung facts din sa SOCMED post, hindi yun yung hubang on your own, katulad ng mga pinakita namin na nakita lang din naman namin online, na kayo na mismo yung, PAL, SEBPAC, AirAsia, may ganitong post na nagva-viral ngayon. Anong comment nyo? Totoo ba to? May kasalanan ba talaga kayo? Anong ginawa nyo? May
Yes,
mga ganun ho ba kayo?
yes, Your Honor, Madam Chair. Moto proprio po, nagpapa-explain kami. Although yun nga, sa other side of the coin naman, when we ask the complainant yung details, in most instances po, hindi sila nagre-respond kasi I tried to understand why, and I'm not an expert.
Sasabihin nyo why? Kasi nga ho, na-hassle na nga ho sila nung airline eh. Tapos i-hassle nyo pa sila to collate all the conversation. Di ba?
Opo.
Parang gusto na, as much as possible, I think yung mga passengers nga gusto na lang nilang makalimutan yung bangungot na nangyari sa kanila. Tapos itong government agency na cab, parang pahihirapan pa sila para lang marinig yung reklamo nila. So I think dapat let us not burden yung mga complainants natin. Nakatulad nga nung sinayad ko example, nakita naman natin na ito yung mga pinagdaanan nila. Why can't cab call the airline
We do po.
and explain? So can you submit sa committee yung mga instances na on your own, tapos ano ho yung naging sagot ng airline, and then ano ho yung, kung nakita nyo na at fault si airline, ano yung penalty na binigay nyo sa kanila? For example, sa cancellation, assuming na talaga may kasalanan si airline, may fine ba ho kayo na binibigay sa kanila?
Yun nga po, depende nga sa kaso na involved kasi merong, I call it an open and shut case. Madali.
And sa
Pero-
ganito, what is the penalty?
Depende po kasi kung halimbawa ano lang, parang refund at the airline naman would respond, wala pong penalty, it could be a warning. Many times we penalize them 5,000 pesos because our law is very old and the maximum is 5,000. It goes to the national coffers, but we also ask the airlines to refund and do whatever can be done. No, pero yung nga po sa experience namin,
On top of the refund, 5,000 pesos lang ho yung penalty nila?
yes ma'am, that's why we are we have been supporting the bills in Congress and the Senate to expand the passenger bill of rights.
It cannot be done through a department order or executive order? Kasi itong AO lang to eh. Diba? Parang mas mabilis.
Kaya nga, Madam Chair, hindi masyado ganong siniseryoso ng mga airlines dahil nga wala, this is only an administrative order. It has no criminal sanctions. So kailangan talaga natin silang mag-legislate para mabigyan ng ngipin yung batas na yan. Kasi wala mangyari pag gano'n. At saka, Madam Chair, yung cab, meron ba kayong kwan, sir? Meron ba kayong yung help desk doon sa mga airport? Mayroon talaga nakalagay, CAB. Any complaints, punta kayo dito at actionan namin kayo. Meron kayo.
Meron po kaming nakalagay malasakit desk CAB. All in one po yun, yung may mga pagkain, yung...
Para yung may makita ang mga
Meron po.
pasahero natin pag, halimbawa, instead na awayin nila yung poor
Ground crew.
yung ground crew ng Cebu Pacific doon na gulo-gulo ng isip, hindi na alam gagawin, imbis awayin nila yon, diretso na lang sila sa inyo para mag-lodge ng complaint.
Opo,
Diba?
we do have complaint desks in...
May tao doon, nakaupo.
Meron po. We have about 200, we call them passenger rights assistance personnel.
At sana, I suggest, yung tao nyo doon, very accommodating, ha?
Opo, they are trained.
Kasi yung kagaya ng isang biktima ng krimen, pupunta sa police station, galit na galit tayo sa mga police pag magpa-blatter, totoo yan sinasabi mo. Hindi totoo yan. Sigurado ka ba? Ganon. Dapat accommodating tayo dahil kawawa yung tao. Ang dami na nga problema tapos dadagdagan pa natin ng stress, di ba? Sana may tao kayong ganun doon sa lahat ng airports.
Yes, sir.
Thank
They
you.
are highly trained.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Salamat.
Sen Risa.
Salamat, Madam Chair. Isa ito sa marami ko pang tanong sana sa CAB, pero itanong ko na lang kay Yusexy pagkatapos ng kanilang input kanina. Do you think that the Air Passengers Bill of Rights should be legislated into law? Tinanong din niya ni Sen Rafi kanina. Actually, nasa reso din ng chair, no? And if yes, are there any treaty obligations that limit the substance of the contemplated law? Halimbawa, yung Montreal Convention of 1999 ba? Yung isa doon. Which also, yung MC-99, which also establishes airline liability, including cases of delay, damage, and loss of baggage, among others. And speaking pala, Mr. Chair and USEC about delay of baggage. Ayan, kaka-message lang po ng sister-in-law ko, yung pamangkin ko flew to Iloilo on Cebu Pac yesterday, 9 a.m. flight. Pagdating niya doon, sinabihan siya na yung maleta niya dahil sa overbooking problems, nilipat sa ibang airline. And then, pagdating sa Iloilo, saka na lang ihahatid sa hotel niya. And her maleta was delivered at 1 a.m. today. Pero 9 a.m. kahapon yung flight niya. So, babalikan ko na lang later sa remaining question ko sa Cebu Pac. But sa inyo, USEC, kailangan bang i-legislate into law? And then, mayroon bang treaty obligations na pwedeng kumabay sa atin?
Thank you, Madam. 2 points. First is the bigger lens is really consumer protection. If we're going to do it right, we have to do it from a consumer lens. We cannot do it by industry, aircraft, then telco, then ukay-ukay, then car vehicles. No, we'll run out of life years to do it. No, but there can be sector-specific legislation. And when we did the JAO 11 years ago, the whole perspective was to put together an initial framework. Before JAO 2012, there was nothing on the ground. No, there was nothing to guide. Of course, there was always this convention, starting with the Warsaw Convention that predates all of that. But conventions are only as good as how they are reflected, implemented, and felt by passengers. So to that question, Madam Chair, there will be conventional treaties, but internationally, these are just the minimum standards. So if we put in a higher standard, given our context of an island nation, very reliant on flights and very reliant on our domestic demand, then for sure we're very supportive and we will be helpful in this effort.
Salamat, Yusexy. Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
pwede ba ako makatanong
You
sa...
have the floor. The chairman is out. I am the acting
Kayo
chairman.
po yung
I
Mr.
will
Chair,
give you all
Madam
the time.
Chair.
Go ahead.
Salamat
Go ahead,
kaayo, Mr.
ma'am. Go ahead,
Chair.
Your Honor.
Okay. At least natanong ko na rin sa PAL yung tungkol sa isang option na sinabi ni ED Arcilla kanina sa denied boarding na passenger dahil sa overbooking, which is yung refund. Balik lang ako dun sa isa pang option, yung sinabi niyo po, yung rebooking. Kasi, I'd like to address my question to Cebu pa, kasi we've also received numerous complaints about Cebu Pacific's online rebooking process. So mukhang yung mga pasahero po nagulat nung yung original flight nila na-cancel bago pa man sila nakabayad para sa isang rebooking. So just quickly, a passenger tried to rebook a flight to Vietnam, kaya lang sa kalagitnaan ng rebooking process, naka-encounter siya ng technical issues sa Cebu Pac website na mukhang dumiretso agad sa payment section, wala pang confirmation ng pasahero. So, yung pasahero, tumawag siya sa customer service, pero in-inform siya na yung original booking niya na-cancel na. So, medyo panic time. Another passenger checking her options, nagdesisyon siya na huwag i-rebook yung flight niya sa Singapore kasi dagdag gastos. Pero kahit, parang yung kanina, kahit hindi pa siya nakabayad ng rebooking fee, kinansela na ng Cebu Pac yung original booking niya. Lastly, isa pang pasahero, another passenger claimed he was able to avail of free rebooking, pero may mga add-ons nung pumili siya ng ilang add-ons, biglang may bill para sa 16,000 pesos na nag-appear. So, si Bupak, just a humble suggestion, and the committee would appreciate your comments, why not delay muna yung cancellation ng original booking ng passenger hanggat yung rebooked flight ay confirmed by the full definition via payment. Kasi bate po sa feedback mula sa mga consumers nyo, mukhang, and this may be an understatement, despite yung appreciation ko sa apologies nyo, yung commitment to do better, communications-wise, may I add practice-wise, there's still more room to make your online booking system a lot more consumer-friendly. So any comments, please, for the committee, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Cebu Pacific.
Yes, through the chair, no? Thank you for that input. We are aware of this issue, and in fact, it is a user experience design issue. I think there is a part of the flow where if a passenger clicks proceed, it commits the changes even before the passenger pays. So we recognize that, no? And we're taking that feedback as well from yourself and from our passengers. And in fact, a fix or an enhancement or a change to this flow is actually being worked on now. And depending on when it's ready, no, but we're looking at possibly towards the end of July that we will be able to implement this change or improvement in the user experience. Now, what we've done and more recently was to also remind our agents that should we receive complaints from passengers saying that I didn't want to add the bag or I didn't mean to rebook it, no, is to actually allow passengers to go back to the original flight or to remove the accidentally added baggage. And yes, we acknowledge and recognize that this is an area that we need to improve on.
Salamat, ma'am. And by end July, meron na po kayong bagong system na
That is-
i-inform sa
that
mga
is-
pasahero niyo.
That is the schedule as of now, no? That's the plan. Yes. Yes.
Kung mabago man, sana mapaaga pa, in fact.
Yes. Yes.
Thank
po.
you, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah.
Madam Chair. Okay, okay. Di, bago mag-close itong hearing natin, baka para hindi magalit sa akin yung asawa ko, i-share ko lang yung experience din niya sa Cebu Park. Baka umaya pag-uwi ko, pagalitan ako kung hindi ko i-share dito eh. Sabi, yung bumiyahe sila ng Japan. Tapos nakatanggap siya ng email, sabay sila nag-booking ng aking mga anak. Pati yung apo ko kasama. Ngayon, yung anak ko at saka yung apo ko, tuloy. Yung asawa ko, naka-receive ng email na canceled yung kanyang flight. Okay lang yun. May PAL naman eh. Nagpa-book siya sa PAL, nakahabol yung asawa ko. Pero problema yung anak ko, pag book na doon, may nakalagay doon, 2 infant kasama niya. So, nagbayad pa sila ng additional fee para sa upuan, para doon sa infant kasi hindi mo pwedeng ilayo mo sa mother yung mga bata. So, yung husband niya, siya at saka yung 2 bata, bali magkadikit lang na upuan. Ngayon, nung nag-check-in na sila sa airport, sinabihan siya, ma'am, yung nag-change tayo ng plane. Kaya medyo maliit ang plane. So, na-reconfigurate yung inyong seating arrangement. Sabi ng anak ko, hindi ba pwedeng ibang eroplano pero sana makadikit rin kami dahil mga bata itong kasama ko mga infant. Sabi ng sir, ma'am, wala talaga kami magawa. So in short, natuloy yung flight nila pero siya dito banda, yung husband niya doon sa malayo, yung anak niya malayo. You can just imagine kung bigyan mo ng seat yung anak mo na 2 years old doon sa napakalayo sa mother, ang hirap. So, ang ginawa na lang nila, lumipad ang aeroplano na yung dalawang bata, karga-karga niya sa upuan niya. I don't know how did they do that. Basta, hawak talaga yung bata. Dahil hindi man pwedeng iwala yung bata sa malayo. Yun ang nakiusap na lang yung, nakiusap na yung flight stewardess na sa mga pasahero na palipat lang gano'n, later din, yun, napalapit konti. Hindi naman ganun malapit, napalapit konti. Pero alam mo, you want to solve an inconvenience by creating another inconvenience to another passenger. Di ba? Napasalamat ako na pagbigyan yung apo ko na palapit konti sa mother niya, sa aking anak. Pero yung passenger naman na kinausap ng ng flight stewardess na palipat, di ba? Nakakahiya. Nakakahiya doon sa pinalipat. But anyway, yun lang gusto ko lang i-share. Wala akong complaint ha. Senior ko lang yung experience ng anak ko. Hindi ako nagko-complain Cebu Pacific. Super sugod sa akin yung Cebu Pacific. Wala akong problema.
Naka-refund ba?
Ha?
Naka-refund ba si
Wala,
kapangalan ko?
wala pa. Hindi pa
Wala
naka-refund.
pa. Hindi ka pa nagre-refund or hindi pa dumadating yung, o ayaw pa alam sa'yo na naka-refund?
Hindi. Hindi naka-refund. Hindi pa sa, baka, yung sabi niyo fund na pwedeng i-travel siguro in the future. So huwag niyong bigyan rin siguro ng expiration date para hindi ako mapilitang bumiyahe na naman, pasamahin ako doon sa asawa ko bumiyahe. Bahala na yung mahaba. Yung suggestion ni Professor Contreras na pwede open-ended para walang expiration. Siguro mas maganda talaga kung
Hindi ba pwede i-pera?
expiring in 34 days. Sana mabigyan pa ng maluwag-luwag na palugit.
I think that's
Ma'am.
one of the things we will take away and study, no? Just to clarify on that case na it's expiring in 32 days, they could actually use it to book for flights as far as a year out, no? So, hindi naman kailangan i-travel in 32 days, but you can
34 days for booking, not for flying. Not,
Percent
not
not
really
flying.
for flying.
Percent ba to? Parang nape-pressure ka naman mamili kung saan ka pupunta, di ba? Hindi mo pa nga alam kung magkano ba yung pera mo by that time. I mean, a year from now? Ano ba yung length ng ano nyo, ticket? Kunyari, pag ginamit na niya, what will be the expiration of the ticket?
1 year. You
Oh,
can
may
book it for
expiration
1
din
year.
yung ticket
1
eh.
year. 1 year.
Eh, paano ko yung nabook mong time, hindi ka pala pinayagan ni Sen Bato magbakasyon? Yun ba refundable? Di ba kasi travel fund, kunyari itong si 5,000, gagamitin niya to book a flight, let's say 6 months from now. Tapos sasabihin ni Sen Bato, busy tayo, bawal ka bumiyahe. So he can't use the ticket. Can she refund it?
Hindi po refundable ang ticket, but if she gets a flexible fare, you could put it back in the travel fund.
Hindi, pero kasi travel fund din. So may flexi fare sa travel fund?
If you buy a flexi, yes po.
If you buy a flexi. So
Yes.
depende din dun sa type of ticket
Yes.
na
Yes po.
ginamit mo. Pero dapat, well, si Sexy is nodding, shaking his head na he does not agree.
Madam Chair, it doesn't have to be rocket science eh. The formula is simple. If you're affected, it's fault by the airline. One, you're entitled to rebook. There should be no cost implication. Di ba? We're not even talking about the breach eh. Di ba? Whether flexi man yan, unflexi, dynamic, zippy, so it doesn't matter eh. You should have the right to rebook. Madam Chair, in your life, have you ever seen a rebooking that has resulted to a cost lowering? The cost differential, fare differential is always upwards. Diba? So those formulaic, it can be done eh. Hindi naman siya mahirap. It's also good for the airline. Airlines are not afraid of regulations. Importante lang certainty of regulations. Wag lang yung pabago-bago. As long as the format is clear, strict man or hindi, susunod naman yan eh. We're up for the same. It's a whole of country, whole of nation approach eh. We're on the same boat eh. So there's no issue. But we have to work together with a very
Hindi mali nga na may expiration itong travel
correct,
fund.
madam. Because cash is fungible, whatever form it is, no. And in fact, the DTI policy was also pushed by a DOJ opinion, including the ones on SRP. If it's cash, whether it's in a form of gift coupon or in a voucher, there's no expiry. It's like the telco load. Bumili ka ng 100 pesos, cash yan eh. Why should that expire just because you made it into a telecash mode? Can you imagine kung GCash ini-expire? It's the same principle. That's why, madam, we said the consumer lens should be there because it cuts across all industries. Eh. We're all affected. Buti na lang if we're senators or we happen to be bureaucrats, then maybe the remedy is easier and faster for us. But again, the DOJ will speak for the little.
Yeah, so with that
Chair.
opinion, can we get lang a commitment from the airlines na dapat wala na expiration? May travel fund ba si Philippine Airlines?
Yes, we do have two types of vouchers, Senator. We have a travel voucher that is sort of a product that we sell. We've submitted our terms and conditions to the CAB for approval several years back. That has an expiry of 2 years because it's a product that we sell to the public. We have a compensation voucher that we use to compensate our passengers who are affected. That one is more flexible. It has in effect, it is an open voucher, open validity because we can renew it anytime if the passenger is not ready to use it yet. Yes.
Oh, gano'n naman pala. So I think dapat SEBPAC you should also offer na walang expiration yung travel fund. Yung dun sa, kung kayo yung nag-offer on top of, baka yun pwedeng may validity. Pero kung yung passenger na hindi nakalipad at ayaw niya na magpa-rebook, tapos gusto na lang niya ng travel fund, yun dapat talaga very clear na it shouldn't have an expiration. Yes, you
Ma'am,
succeed.
padagdag lang. And the airline should not be too worried. Economic regulation theory says that kung may travel voucher ka, atat mong gamitin yun eh. You will not keep it and tumataas ang airfare. The longer you wait, the smaller the value of your travel fund. No?
Yes,
We
so,
have
kumbaga, lumalaki din yung abono mo.
correct. So you don't have to be afraid of the indefinite na ipapark yan. Gagamitin mo kaagad yan kung may travel fund ka. Instead of other forms, makalimutan pa or mawala. Second, Madam Chair, on the question of the refund, no, we understand different forms of payment, yung cycles. But again, the burden should not be on the consumers. Kung nagbayad ka, whatever form, bayad ka eh. Di ba? And then there's a float aspect to that. Kung may refund, i-refund mo na ng airline, which the airline has experienced in that during the pandemic eh. Few 800 million in refunds that we held during the pandemic. Float lang naman yan eh. Set aside 100 million for those with urgent need for the money so they can buy and use the cash, no? Okay lang kung may spare ka to keep on rebooking and fly another airline. So there's a host of other issues, Madam Chair. Yung no-show, is your fare totally unrefundable, canceled na, 'di ba? What about unjust enrichment issue? No, there's a host of issues that are quote unquote interlinked. And our suggestion, Madam Chair, for Senate legislation to be in place, it has to be a proactive approach. Otherwise, another 5-10 years, we'll be in the same boat. No, at least we have JAO 2012 that sets the framework. 10 years after, we can really move for improvement to make our airlines, our industry, and all the support services world class. Yun na naman ang gusto natin lahat. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Madam Chair.
we hope that USIC C will be required to be present during the next hearing. Dapat andito ka para you have all the legal opinions na favorable to the public interest. Salamat.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I would like to remind our resource persons from the airlines that you have a franchise and you have a commitment because franchise is actually a privilege that was given to you, of course, with the service that you provide to our countrymen. Cebu Pacific's franchise was given in 1991. Philippine Airlines, Airfil, Express, PAL Express was granted in 2022. There are a few things that you need to comply with, particularly your repertorial requirements, what activities you have, any expansion, development, etc. I know that Philippine Airlines hasn't submitted one yet, but maybe because they only had one in 2022. Cebu Pacific has yet also to submit that. But I would like to say that, you know, this is really the primary responsibility of the CAB. Hindi kayo dapat nagbibigay ng permit to operate pag wala pang compliance of reporting sa Congress. You should have been able to check that. So, I don't know, I'm sure the representative of the CAB is familiar with this because you've been there since 2014. So, there are penalties involved, and I think, Madam Chair, that eventually we're going to have to review all of these commitments that they have made through their franchise. Otherwise, I think that they're taking it for granted. Just a reminder, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Sen Grace. Sen Risa?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Wait, nakalimutan pa natin si Mia. Any statement?
Madam Chair, members of the Senate, again, thank you for inviting the MIA. Being the major gateway in the Philippines po, of course, we play a key role. We have our own issues ourselves, but the airlines also have some issues and sometimes. And we would like to promote a collaborative and shared responsibility in terms of the approach on how we solve all of these issues. Lahat naman po to may solusyon, basta magkakasama at maayos ang ating paghahanap ng mga solusyon na kinakailangan. So the proactive stance, as mentioned by USEC, that's being espoused by the MIA board right now po is of course reaping its benefit. Actually, what we can report to you since last year po, mentioned by ED Arcilia, was there was an airline that was lagging in terms of the metrics, itong on-time performance and cancellations. But since we've intervened last year, we were able to see a very drastic improvement in their operations right now. So from around 50 to 60% on-time performance last year, they've been logging 70 to 80% this year, even during the times na nagkakaproblema po.
Which airline is that?
This is Philippines Air Asia po. po. We had an action plan for them to improve last year. And through the intervention, of course, of the committee, which is composed of the DOTR, Civil Aeronautics Board, MIAA, at CAAP, may action plan silang sinabit sa amin so that, simple lang po they should mount a schedule that they can support reliably. Similarly po, ito po yung approach natin ngayon with Philippine Airlines in Cebu Pacific. In the past few weeks po, we've been talking to them on how they can adjust their network plans para po ma-reduce itong mga nakikita nating delays at cancellations. We've actually seen a degradation of our schedule since March po. Nag-peak po tayo noong March 2023. In fact, March 2023 po, we had the most number of flights since the pandemic po. We had 23,400 flights in Manila. But we logged 80% on-time performance, which is very good. All of them were prepared for the peak, di ba? Kasi papasok na rin po. Pero when we went to
Kasama dyan sa ano nyo is the foreign airlines?
Yes po.
Kasama.
Total system po to.
Okay. So can you, you can just submit to the committee, ano yung level of performance ng
Yes po.
local airlines natin compared
po.
dun sa
We can
foreign
submit a
airlines?
report po on a per airline basis per month din po so that we can compare. And then we noticed na nung April, bumaba na to 75% on-time performance. Then come May, naging 67%. And as of June po, as of today, we are just at 57% on-time performance. So we were dropping 10% each month since we peaked, of course, nung March and April. So we've noted already na may mga issues. That's why we sat down with the airlines. Ano ba talaga yung problema? So meron po tayong mga na-mention nila that the spare parts issue that they're resolving. But apart from that, tinitignan rin po natin yung ibang factors. Katulad po ng na-mention na meron tayong mga bird strikes, red lightning alert. Marami po tayong pwedeng mai-improve. For the red alerts naman po, nagsimula naman po yung effect niya sa schedules natin nung papasok ang tag-ulan. So nung April, we had 3 days na nagka-red alert. Nung May po, we had 11 days. And as of June right now, kahit nasa June 21 pa lang po tayo, 11 days na po yung red alerts. But mababawasan din naman po yan. And in terms of the red lightning alert, I'm sure a lot of you have experienced that in the airport. These are in place so that we can ensure that we protect our ground crew na nagtatrabaho. But we're continuously trying to enhance that po. So in fact, last year, the red alert zone was at 9 kilometers from the airport. In collaboration with the airlines and the safety experts, we were able to reduce that to 5 kilometers para po mabawasan. But right now, we're also sitting with them and pag-asa para further look into how we can enhance this para mas ma-minimize natin yung impact sa stop operations. But at the same time, we do not compromise safety on our ground personnel kasi napaka-importante din po nito. So apart from that, we agree po in the transparency in terms of the timely advice to the passengers. Napaka-importante po na ahead of time, if they can already advise cancellations and delays para hindi po sa airport nagkakaproblema. Kasi kapag hindi po naabisuhan ng mga pasahero, nagpupunta sa airport, nagkukumpulan, doon po tayo nagkakaroon ng congestion. And if we don't resolve these delays and cancellations soon enough, of course, magkakaroon po tayo ng systematic problem. May spillover yan. Kaya po mababa ang on-time performance ngayon, kaya mataas ang air traffic delays kasi hindi po nasusunod ang kanilang mga slots. So we will look into that proactively po. We're working with the airlines. In fact, we met with PAL yesterday and tomorrow we'll be meeting with Cebu Pacific as well so that we can have concrete action plans that we can report to the body as well, sir and ma'am. So to close that, we are one with the government and we thank the Senate po for this opportunity. And of course, for all the advice that you've given us and of course the air carriers, and we will make sure we will put that into action and report that at the soonest possible time po. Thank you po.
Sen. Risa.
Salamat, Madam Chair. Just one last quick comment. Bunga nung isang sinabi ni OIC ko. I think yung isang hinahanap din natin, and salamat muli sa Chair for holding this hearing and filing the resolution, ay a bit more parity between the passengers and the airlines. Kasi maya't maya, di ba, I mean, pag kami mga pasahero nahuhuli sa flight, mapaparusahan tayo, we miss the flight. Pero kapag ganyan, canceled ang flight, delayed ang flight, parang wala namang perwisyo on the part of the airline. So hindi sa gusto kong maperwisyo ng mga airline. Pero kaya I think it's a really good idea. Mag-look into tayo as the chair has initiated. Tinanong din nga ni Sen. Rafi kanina. Let's really look into legislating the air passengers Bill of Rights for more satisfaction in taking flights, less resentment and less itong mga avoidable na mga problema kasi mas ma-empower talaga yung mga pasahero sa ating lahat ng mga karapatan. Salamat, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Siguro last na lang, kay you succeed. Pag napasa namin yung sinasabi na consumer rights, is still there a need for this air passenger bill of rights?
Hindi na siguro, madam. When we have the consumer protection legislation well crafted, that will actually subsume all the other parts. We also don't want to impose legislation by legislative fiat, especially on a complex sector like airlines. Mas maganda talaga hands-off from government. Unless it affects consumers, then we can step in. But yung mga metrics that can change with technology. So we don't want to step into that realm unless we know what we're doing. Thank you.
And then kasama din siguro doon yung responsibility kung saan talaga pwede mag-redress yung ating mga kababayan.
The
At the
governance
moment,
framework,
diba,
madam.
I don't know if yung DTI pwede din bang
We've
will
actually
start?
convened the DTI, madam, on this aspect also. Kasi paminsan nagtuturoan yung DTI and CAB. But regardless of the tuturoan, our perspective has always been, doesn't matter. If you're a citizen, doesn't matter kung sinong ahensya. That should be the overarching. Yung last point lang, madam, yung 5,000, that's actually a false example. 5,000 pesos, it's not the issue Ang airlines, takot sila sa CPCN. CAB can ask the airlines to do anything. Who cares about the 5,000, 5 million? It's importante yung economic regulator. That's more important in an era of deregulated fares. So yung 5,000, maliit, that's setting us back in the enforcement. I think that's a fallacy.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Sen. Grace.
just to summarize our discussion, also to help us move forward with future hearings, these are the things, the points that I've observed that we need. Rebooking should be easier, no additional charge or burden. A quicker refund. CAB should be called to a hearing to explain also how they've been regulating the airlines. And also CAAP, as requested by Senator Tulfo, to assure us of the safety of our airlines. More airline reps and live representatives to attend to phone calls, complaints, and to give guidance, most especially. Also a reminder to our airlines, annual reportorial submissions, particularly of the two airlines that we have been asking today to submit those. CAB should not grant permission to these airlines to operate without the submissions to Congress. So yung sinasabi ng ating USEC na CPCN, lahat yan, konektado dito sa reporting na dapat ay binibigay sa Kongreso. We also have to look into the Passenger Bill of Rights and see if the Consumer Protection Bill will actually cover all of that. Again, I agree that government should not really over-regulate. We have to give our businesses a chance to be able to self-regulate. However, again, if the consumers are affected, we really have to step in. So those are my observations, Madam Chair, as representing the Committee on Public Services. Thank you again for calling for this hearing.
Thank you, Senator Grace. And our Majority Floor Leader, Senator Joel Villanueva, also has an opening statement, but will just submit for insertion into the record. Any last words from our resource person? Okay na ho tayo? Sige, well, unang-una, maraming salamat sa ating mga resource person sa pag-share ng inyong experiences sa ating mga airline at sa iba't ibang ahensyang dumalo sa hearing na ito. Kahit paano ay nagkaroon ng konting paglilinaw tungkol sa iba't ibang issue na pumuperwisyo sa ating mga pasahero. What has been highlighted so far in this hearing is the evident lack of customer handling. Our passengers, it seems, have nowhere to turn for their grievances. Dahil sa kawalan ng human touch, lalong naagrabyado ang ating mga pasahero. Over the course of the next hearings, we hope to be able to unearth more of the issues surrounding our airlines. Umaasa din tayo na sa pamamagitan ng investigasyon natin ay makakalikha tayo ng polisiya na tutugon sa ating mga problema. Hindi po ito finger-pointing ang target natin, kundi ang paghahanap ng epektibong solusyon. Let's all work together, the government, the private sector, and our constituents to uphold the welfare of the riding public. Muli, maraming salamat, and there being no other matters to take up, this meeting is now adjourned. Suspended. Thank you.